All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get this meeting going. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please stand for Pledge Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. In terms of announcements, the public is hereby advised of the audio and video recording of the meeting for the purposes of rebroadcasting. Also, there was an executive session of the board held in the high school on 4/25 prior to the board meeting for the purposes of discussions regarding contract negotiations with the Methacton Education Association, discussions regarding professional support and administrative staff associated with closure of Audubon Elementary and other building level staff changes, and to discuss a legal matter regarding student 530-480-478. Now, in terms of attendance, we have everybody present except for Mr. Roth and Mr. Phillips. And now I'll turn it over to Dr. Zerbe for recognition of guests and scheduled speakers.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. President. This evening we have 4 presentations. We have the Arrowhead Home and School, a transportation update, or a school transition update, a strategic plan update, and Methacton High School Fields project review update. I would ask if the members of the Arrowhead Home and School would please come forward and present. And Ms. Hall, do you have a presentation or?
No.
Oh, okay.
We're just speaking. Good evening. My name is Mary Hall. I'm one of the co-presidents at Arrowhead Home and School. I'm joined by Dawn Hobble and Leslie Pisano, my co-president and our recording secretary. And it's been a busy year at Arrowhead. You may want to get comfortable. The chosen theme for the year is Fill a Bucket, based on the children's book by Carol McLeod, where each child has an internal bucket that's filled up by doing good works and kind gestures. When children have their buckets filled and learn how they can fill other people's buckets too, they understand how special, valuable, and capable they are. With that in mind, in September, we opened our year with our back-to-school picnic in our playground, where our Watchdog dads helped scoop water ice for all the attendees. Later in the month, we hosted our Watchdogs Pizza Night, where we invited fathers and students to learn more about the program, to learn more about the benefit of the program in school. In October, we participated in the Methacton Homecoming Parade with our Fill a Bucket themed float. At school, we held a Fall Fest activity night, as well as our first Trunk or Treat fundraiser. Arrowhead parent volunteers assisted in our Halloween parade and class parties, and after Halloween, our student council organized a Halloween candy donation for our troops and local service centers. In November, we held our annual Veterans Day program. This year included a donation of a new flag and stand from the Guarini family in memory of George Fanders, an Arrowhead grandparent who attended and thoroughly enjoyed the program in prior years. Mr. Roberts and our staff coordinated the Community Helper First Responder Luncheon, where our local police, fire, and EMTs are invited to join the students at lunch in a show of appreciation. Before Thanksgiving, Home and School hosted Grandfriends Day. On this day, we invite grandparents and grandfriends to come visit visit their student in the classroom. We had over 260 attendees this year, who then left their best bucket-filling advice on a mural that now stands outside of our main office.
During our November teacher conferences, the Arrowhead lobby was transformed into the Student Council Cafe, where parents could purchase coffee and snacks before and after their classroom visits with the teacher. All profits from the cafe, along with coordinated pretzel sales throughout the year, were used for the annual Student Council Walmart trip. The field trip allowed the students to choose holiday gifts that are then donated to local families in need. In December, we hosted our holiday gift shop and holiday class parties. In January, the Pennies for Patients campaign was held for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Our school raised a remarkable $1,794.12 in this fundraiser. There was a lot of great math practice in counting coins. February fun included a Proud to Be Me Week, Valentine's Day, our 100th day of school, and mother-son bowling. Mrs. Smith coordinated jump rope for Hart, where we had 44 participants from 3rd and 4th grade with a total of $2,721 raised for the American Heart Association. In March, we celebrated Dr. Seuss's birthday, and Arrowhead Home and School had our annual Riff book distribution. Arrowhead Home and School works in coordination with our reading specialists to select books from which our young readers can choose. We hosted a bucket filling challenge where donations of household goods were accepted to our local outreach house. We also participated in Rock Your Socks World Down Syndrome Day. We hosted family folk dance and family bingo night. Our 4th graders had their field trip to Harrisburg for a tour of the state capitol and the Pennsylvania State Museum. Our 2nd graders also had a field trip to Longwood Gardens to learn more about the life cycles of plants and insects. We also funded the Art Goes to School program to encourage art appreciation. Last week, Arrowhead Home and School assisted in post-prom by decorating a boys' bathroom with inspiration from Greece. Yesterday and today were the final classes for our 2nd grade Spanish club, where the students celebrated with a fiesta thanks to Senor Morgan.
Looking ahead, next week our garden committee will spend an evening in coordination with our local Girl Scout troop in mulching and planting our front gardens. For the remainder of the year, we will host our Teacher Appreciation Day, Spring Fair, Field Day, and the end-of-year picnic. We also look forward to the dedication of the front playground's second buddy bench, which is a custom creation from our graduating 4th grade class. We also have many other great activities ongoing throughout the year. Our recess running club, the Mighty Milers, have had 182 students participate with 1,395.8 miles logged so far. Our staff members have completed 770.6 miles so far. AHSA provides parent volunteers to help the long-distance run. We also have after-school sports for our 4th graders, math club for 3rd graders, and safety rangers, chime choir, and Spanish club, as already mentioned. Our Watchdogs program is in its 4th year at Arrowhead. So far this year, we have 58 different watchdogs signed up to help during the school year. Out of 143 possible days we could host, we have had 85 days with a watchdog in our school, and 16 watchdogs have come in 2 or more times. We include our watchdogs in our back-to-school picnic, Halloween event, Veterans Day, Assembly, Grand Friends Day, Field Day, and the last day school events. We continue our tradition of teacher allotments to reimburse teachers for out-of-pocket expenses. We have twice-a-year mini grants, and this year we have approved the expenses for 2 community-based outings by the communications class and flag markers for our recess running club. We also provide parent volunteers for the cafeteria and the library, and we send a weekly email to all parents with the latest news of all our school and activities. None of these activities or donations could have been possible without the enthusiastic support of our parents, teachers, and administration. We have enjoyed a great year, and we look forward to including our new families transitioning from Audubon and Eagleville this summer and in September. Thank you.
Officers of the Arrowhead Home and School, thank you very much for the presentation and for your leadership. Of course, like all of our home and schools, you contribute so much. I just keep hearing, not only the activities, but the dollars and the miles that you've walked. Those are all some great things. But you mentioned one other item that I fail to give recognition to sometimes, and Aaron Roberts, our building principal, who started the Watchdog program here in Methacton, I got to say thank you for doing that, and that spread into other buildings, and it's a great opportunity for getting dads into the classroom to experience a non-traditional environment. So we want to thank our home and school for working with Aaron on that project and making it a success. So thank you very much. Next on the agenda, we have a school transition update. Ms. Gorla, I think you're going to be presenting onto the screen, so if the board would please take their seats in the front row, I'd appreciate it.
This is like the world's lowest microphone. Good evening. I'm here to give you our monthly update on how we're doing with our transition process. This past month, we've spent quite a bit of time on the programming for our 4 elementary schools for the upcoming school year. The process has been involved. We've been looking at enrollment information, both current enrollment information provided by our consultants Malone and McBroom, and an ongoing review of actual enrollment to monitor number of sections in each level at each school. This is consistent, which is what is done each summer, and our monitoring of enrollment will continue throughout August as we prepare for the start of school in September. We've been working, Dr. Harney and I have been working in collaboration with our building administration, working on such things as placement of classrooms within buildings, as well as, again, looking at enrollment, looking at number of sections, as well as looking at projects that need to be completed for the upcoming school year with regards to spaces in the various buildings. Those requests have been submitted to Mr. Fretz, our Director of Facilities, to prepare for the 17-18 school year. In general, I've offered a comparison of total number of sections district-wide in each of our grade levels. You'll see 2016-17, we currently have 13 sections of kindergarten, 17 grade 1, 17 grade 2, 17 grade 3, and 17 in grade 4. Next year, 13, then 17 in grade 1, 16 grade 2, 18 grade 3, and 16 in grade 4. Our K-4 special area instruction will continue as art, music, library, physical education, instructional, and instrumental music available in all of our buildings. We'll have support available in each of the buildings, including reading specialists, instructional intervention specialists, math specialists, ESL, OT, PT, learning support, and emotional support, with our district-wide elementary communications program continuing at Arrowhead and district-wide elementary autistic support program at Woodland. So as you can see with all of these items, that's where the building maps come into play, and there's been a lot of versions of maps looking and making sure that we are providing the appropriate spaces for all of our instructional areas and our support areas. And I thank my elementary principal colleagues for their assistance, from being in a conference room looking at maps to walking buildings with Mr. Fretz and I. They were most helpful in getting this accomplished. What we look at a lot is numbers, and obviously decimals can't really equate to children, but we look at straight averages here of what a class size will look like next year with the number of sections that we're projecting for each of our elementary schools. This is the part that we're constantly monitoring, because you're looking at what your enrollment is actually, what you're projecting your enrollment, how that ebbs and flows during the summer. This is what we are looking at for our upcoming school year at Arrowhead, 4 sections in each of our grade levels. At Eagleville, you'll see 4 sections in first grade, 3 in second, 5 in third, and 4 in fourth. Woodland, 5 sections of first grade, 4 sections of second grade, 5 sections of third, and 4 in fourth. And Worcester with 4 sections of first grade, 5 in second grade, and 4 in both third and fourth grade. Pause for a moment so you can take a look there. That's what we've been trying to look at too. It does not really, when you look at the total number of students, it really isn't. It's just kind of how they're divided. I don't think we're going to see a bubble like we had, like the current 7th grade going through. Yeah. So I was looking for that as well. Our projected kindergarten, we're projecting 3 sections at Arrowhead, 3 at Eagleville, 4 at Woodland, and 3 at Worcester. The average class sizes aren't available yet. We're still early in the registration process. So the targeted class size for kindergarten is always 22 or lower. Kindergarten is often the hardest to pinpoint and what we monitor the closest as we go through. This is very small because there's a lot of things on the timeline update, and I know that you'll receive a copy of this so that you can take a look at this, and I'll just talk through it. Dr. Zerbe had set forth our timeline of large tasks that we need to accomplish in order to bring this to fruition for September. So there are many things that we've completed. There are many things that are ongoing. A few things I'd like to highlight are communications. We continue doing ongoing communications bi-weekly using our electronic newsletters for our parents, our staff emails, our intranet site, really sharing information as we have it so that way everyone feels like they're in the loop on what is going on. Dr. Harney asked that I let you all know that with transportation engagement and planning, we are progressing on schedule. He is going to be setting up a meeting with his community transportation committee in the coming weeks. Program logistics, that's what I had just shared with you. I believe our draft is complete of that, which helps us with the bottom piece there, staffing determinations and notices. We have held initial meetings, and we're looking at having the selection of positions for teachers who need to select new positions prior to May 25th. As you know, with the calendar, we approved a K-4 in-service day on May 30th, so the goal is for everyone to be settled on where they're going next year prior to that in-service day. This is the second part of the timeline. Of special note, we've engaged with a moving company, and our target moving date is July 10th, 11th, and 12th. So my task and attention turns to providing direction to particularly our Audubon staff with how that move will look, and specific directions that they need to help that move go as smoothly as possible and have all of their items end up where they end up. That's always important. Current work also includes looking at the furniture and the materials and supplies that are currently at Audubon, inventorying those, and then determining where they will be distributed around the district and accurately logging where items are going. Our renovations projects are being planned. Again, that has to do with where we're putting things in buildings. An example of this would be when we have our reading specialists and instructional intervention specialists sharing a classroom. How are we going to divide that classroom? So those are and that's an example of a renovation project. So we are in the planning stage of those renovations projects, again, with the target of all of those being completed prior to the school year beginning. Elementary school scheduling is something that is coming up. The principals will be collaborating on building their master schedules to have commonality between those in the 4 schools. They're also working on our special area schedule as well. I'm very thankful. I have a dedicated group of parents that are coming to our home and school transition committee meetings. A lot of great ideas generated. You've seen some of our ideas and some things that are going on. There are other things coming ahead and coming out of that committee, which is really, which is great. A lot of different events being planned. The ones that is coming up quickly are our open houses at each elementary school. We are going to have student-led tours available. You'll see the dates posted up there. Arrowhead, Eagleville, Woodland, and Worcester from 6 to 7 p.m. It's really a casual opportunity for our students to go and see their buildings. We're also in the planning stages of having the building principals for next year visit the students at their current school. So, for example, Mrs. Euchre will go and visit the students at Audubon who will be attending Woodland so that they can get to know and put a name with a face of the building principal and the building counselor. There are some specific Audubon activities to mark the closing of the building that we're working on. Their art show is this week. It is an art show and a heritage celebration. Mrs. Aridin will be recognizing all of the students with pieces in the Audubon Art Gallery. When we sat and we brainstormed and we looked at the Audubon Art Gallery, which is really a sight to behold, it was really important to all of us and important to Mrs. Aridin that she have the opportunity to congratulate those students personally and really be the one that gives back that artwork. On June 7th, we are planning for a time capsule opening. There is a time capsule buried in the Environmental Center, so if you could all cross one set of fingers that we find it on like the first time we dig, that would be great. But we are planning a time capsule opening, and we'll be inviting back retirees and former staff members of Audubon to join the Audubon school community in opening that.
How old is it?
I want to say that it was before I was there. I think it was in the 90s. Yeah, It's been there a while. Yeah. So Mrs. Siliberto remembers where it is, so I believe. So we're going to find the time capsule. We're going to find the time capsule ahead of the assembly, and it'll be great. I think it'll be a great time. We're going to invite former staff members back. I think it'll be a nice time for the Audubon community. Staff-wise, our meetings with individual members regarding furlough, demotion, and displacement occurred on April 20th. We are working right now on the specific list of available positions to be shared ahead of the selection process. That's something that Dr. Harney and I are working cooperatively with our representatives from MEA on, so that we can provide comprehensive information ahead of that position selection process. And as I mentioned before, we're working on packing information. So those are our next steps, things that I'll give you an update on when you see me again in May. And that is all I have for you tonight.
Members of the board, we have 3 presentations this evening, and which I know you often like to ask questions, but before Ms. Gorley leaves, would you like to ask questions from where you're at now, or go up to the seats, and then we have to come back and forth 2 more times? I know this is kind of complicated, but... Huh?
I mean, the next 2 presentations are here.
Yeah, yeah. To stay? Okay. All right.
Questions?
Can you stay until they get to the seats? Okay.
Absolutely.
Good. Yeah, or do you have questions now? Do you want to stay and ask questions now? Okay, then we'll do that.
Okay.
We'll do it. That's fine.
Sure. Great. Brenda.
Just the moving of the July 10th, 11th, 12th, and there is a camp there
There is.
during that time that will work.
Yeah, we'll work around the camp and make sure that they're safe as well. Yes. Yep. Thank you.
I was writing questions and then you would answer them after I had just written them. So thank you so
You're
much
welcome.
for everything. I have just 2 relatively quick questions.
Sure.
One is, for example, not about personal, but other people might have the same questions. The why before care and after care program has started to ask parents where they're moving to. So I guess my question is, I would imagine we will share with them. Is that done through Effective, or does the Y just kind of handle that?
The why to know what students are going to be
Yeah,
there.
so because they're actually talking about, moving their staff around
Okay.
as well.
One of the things that we're actually doing, and that I neglected to highlight, is we're preparing a letter to go home to each member of our community. So regardless of whether you're changing schools or not, you'll receive a letter saying this is your school you're going to be at next year, with some other information. So every family will receive that. We will also reach out to the Y, and we can give them information. We can't give them specific student information, confidentiality-wise, but we can certainly, we're working right now to make sure we're in contact with all of the daycares, because that was one of the things that I contacted transportation about this week, was to start talking about, okay, well, what daycares do we transport to, what daycares transport to us, so that we can make sure that we're logistically ready for that piece as well.
And then my last question, a couple kindergarten parents reached out to me, especially you.
Wondering about their placement?
And very
Yes.
intelligently, when they registered for kindergarten, the people told them we'll be in touch.
Yes.
We don't want to, and so I just
When will they
would
be in
ask
touch?
that you are so incredibly on top of this, and I, as a parent going through it, appreciate how on top of this you are. I just wanted to speak out for those kindergartners,
Yes.
those new children, knew they were unsure, like
Yeah,
about the
and they
daycare.
typically do get a communication from the district office saying, this is where you're assigned, and giving some follow-up information. So I would imagine that's going to follow close on the heels of the 1st through 4th grade letters as well. So I agree. Daycare is when you have young ones, it's important. Paul?
I noticed a couple of the sections are creeping in on that 22,
Yes.
23 student mark.
And that's what we're monitoring, so that we can keep we have my spreadsheets that I have highlighted yellow, the ones that that Dr. Harney and I are keeping kind of close eye on to see if we need to, yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Then if necessary,
Yep.
we'll bump that up.
Then we would bump that up. Yes. And we've actually, I've worked with the principals, and we've kind of identified areas that we were worried, so that we could make sure that in the event that we need to do something, we have room and we know what we would be doing building-wise as well.
the number of classrooms.
Still doing okay.
For all sections. Great, thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad to see that the Transportation Committee is going to be meeting, so Dr. Harney, that's bringing that additional eyes to look at transportation is helpful for the community. And maybe it's actually more of a question for him, but I forgot to ask last week, the route testing is being done for the transportation.
Yes.
Is it being done during the exact same time period for the routing of the buses and not in the middle of the day?
I do not know, but I can get an answer for you on that.
That was one of the
Yeah.
mistakes I think you learned from last summer.
Pattern testing.
And also, is there any concern, or is there anything that you need to know about for the staff related to the Blue Waterfront, the expectation of when they can do that?
When they'll be working on that? Yes, we're working with them on that to provide some time on May 30th and also other times. We're also going to be, Mrs. Brucker and I were talking today about many of your generous offers to come and assist, so you'll be hearing from us.
I'm happy to do it.
So,
Thank you.
Other questions?
Based on your timeline, is there anything that you would like to be further along at this point in time? Is there any hurdle that you know I help?
Not at this point in time. I think we're okay at this point in time. I think as we get going with packing and with moving, that's my next hurdle that I'm working on, is orchestrating that. So once I have a little bit more of that under my belt, that may be an area. Thank you for asking. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gordon. Strategic plan. Good evening. Before I start discussion on the strategic plan, it was a strategic move to bring Ms. Gola forward to help lead this transition process, and I hope that the boards and the community and our home and school volunteers and everybody involved is pleased with the work that she's doing. I certainly am, and I know that we probably wouldn't be far along the timeline if we wouldn't have her leadership in this. So I want to thank her publicly and say thanks for the hard work that you're doing with the rest of our administrative and staff. Next on our agenda here this evening is strategic plan. You remember about a year ago, we had embarked on a pretty comprehensive process to involve the community in developing a 6-year strategic plan for the Methacton School District. We called it a blueprint for success. And as part of that plan, there was a report in that plan on an annual basis in April, and tonight is that part of that process. So as you may recall, we had a huge community effort. More than 100 parents, teachers, students, and administrators and community leaders helped us put together goals and objectives designed to move the district forward over the next 6 years. The plan is designed to address 5 focus areas: student growth and achievement, staff development, pupil services, and educational technology. Focus area 2, communications and community relations. Focus area 3, safety, operational technology, facilities, and infrastructure. 4, district operations, financial management and human resources. And last but not least, our co-curricular activities, extracurricular activities, and athletics. I'm proud to say that as part of this effort, we've made quite a substantial progress. And this evening, I have the rest of my cabinet here with me. We'll introduce them shortly, but I do want to share that the image that you see to the left, not the blue part, but the image with the staff and students holding a letter representing the name of our district, and above that, our vision and mission, really, I think, points to the key of our focus and efforts and our beliefs. So, for example, if you can see in green under vision, you see words like empower, encourage, inspire. And under our mission, you see words like student-focused and community-centered. And I think those words combined really had set the tone for the effort that our community, our students and staff put forward in developing this plan and to reevaluating our vision, mission, and our core values, and just starting to articulate that over the next several years. So as you might imagine, the first thing I did at the start of the school year, while I held my roundtable discussions with every building and the staff, I made our strategic plan a focus, tried to educate them on what we were progressing forward with and how we could use their help and how they could get involved. And most importantly, what opportunities were available for them to participate. We've provided regular progress updates, including my superintendent's community conversations, and those are listed on the district website and archived through with those months articulated there. In addition, we'll have additional progress updates scheduled for April and June of this year. Now, if I could, I'd like to introduce several members of my administrative team. First, looking at Focus Area 1, it'll be Dr. Katona and Dr. Angstad. Will you please come forward?
I would like to start by just talking a little bit about focus area number 1, which is student growth, achievement, staff development, pupil services, and educational technology. During the 16-17 school year, there were 3 strategic objectives that we were working on. I will speak to the first one, and that is working towards addressing supports under the whole child concept. This first step in this process was to develop a working definition of the whole child concept based on 5 tenets, which are healthy, safe, engaged, supported, and challenged. These 5 tenets represent areas that not only support the academic needs of students, but also their social and emotional needs as well. The next step, once the working definition was developed, was that each school completed an inventory of the current supports and services that were available in each of our buildings for our students. After this step was completed, the building formed committees, and they worked to evaluate the effectiveness of those services and supports to determine how did they compare on this rubric we developed using those 5 tenets. The next step in the place we currently are is once that evaluation at the building levels are completed, we will be developing a comprehensive list of all the district-wide services and supports we have available for students, and then use that data to determine if additional services and supports are needed to further increase the academic, social, and emotional growth for our students. And now, Tara Rickey.
A second piece of this focus area is professional development, and the Act 48 committee worked to reformat our needs assessment survey and conduct the survey earlier in the school year so that we could gain greater responses from our staff, which I'm happy to say we did, and then use this information as a basis for our discussion regarding our needs and plans for next year. These professional development sessions will begin with our summer sessions, which the Act 48 committee will be meeting in a few weeks to review and approve so that staff can begin selecting the work they'll be doing over the summer in order to get prepared for next school year. We will be publishing a professional development calendar of events before the school year ends so that staff are aware of the topics that we'll be covering throughout the year next year. And we are also then able to bring in the best presenters as well as tap our staff members who are experts in different areas in order to best meet the needs of all of our staff.
And the last strategic objective for the 2016-17 focus in this area is increasing the focus on K-12 STEM planning or programming. So we actually had begun a focus on STEM programming 2 years ago when we took part in a 2-day workshop involving teachers, administrators, and community members. At that time, we worked through defining a vision for STEM in our district, and we then identified priorities to work toward that vision. We realized that in order to take any major steps, we first needed to find out what we are already doing in this area. So through the work of a few administrators and input from teachers, we have been working throughout this year to collect information on STEM-related curriculum and activities currently in place at each level, K-4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, 12. Our next steps will be to identify areas, based on that feedback, will be to identify areas on which we can build throughout the district, those which will have the greatest impact on our STEM goals. Along with this, we are also going to be offering an opportunity for a group of teachers to participate in a workshop this summer through which they will write a STEM-related grant. Next year, we will be continuing our work based on the results of the information we receive from each level, as well as from any grants that are funded.
Then for Focus Area 2, one of our leaders, Ms. Lynch, will speak about communications and community relations.
My slide is busier. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So when we met with our communications committee and our strategic planning, we focused a lot of our emphasis in the first year on the need to collect data that either supports or challenges some of the assumptions that we make about the effectiveness of our communications. When we talk about community relations, we're talking about new ways that we can engage our constituency groups, whether they're within or around the Methacton School District, in order to further the relationships that we have with them, build the relationships that we have with them in order to gain greater support for the district. So the emphasis this year on communications was on, again, evaluating current methods and tools and gathering that data to inform communications and maybe make recommendations for improvements, promoting awareness and consistency in particular as it is across different buildings, the kind of communications that parents are receiving from one building or one level to the next, and then of course showcasing the district's educational programs and activities, which is always a goal of the communications office. So the items completed this year, we had a community that came together. We had parents, teachers, other administrators, and community members that agreed to join me in this effort. We developed a survey, we tested the survey, and we made a conscious decision to delay the survey until the end of the school year, which was somewhat off from our timeline, so that we could instead focus on the really important communications that were taking place around consolidation and transition. We also distributed a short video to all families that outlines some of the varied communication tools and their purposes, and we do that now annually at the beginning of every school year. We also engaged our principals in an audit of all the different varied communications tools and efforts that they're already engaged in, and we can use that combined with the data that we'll get from the survey to help inform changes and improvements in communications. In community relations, again, we're talking about fostering relationships with townships, community nonprofits, area businesses, for our collective goal of furthering the excellence of the Methacton School District. In that area, some of the items completed were primarily engaged in on the part of administrators at the high school. So we had several administrators train students to help support families for whom childcare is a challenge that might make it difficult for them to attend student or parent events. We also helped Carrie Kokenauer at the high school designed a Martin Luther King Day of Service. The first time the inaugural event was held, we had over 100 students participate, and they fanned out to nonprofits throughout the Methacton community. We hope to make that an annual event, and we expect the number of students participating in that event to rise exponentially because it was very, very successful. In engaging our seniors, we continue to increase the different programs that we offer through community education, and I've met personally with the CEO of Meadowood and also with representatives of Shenandoah so that we can work cooperatively with them to find new ways that we can partner with them, whether it's through volunteer opportunities that bring them into our schools, or programs that bring them into our schools, or other opportunities that bring our children, our students, into those communities, either for intergenerational activities or through internships with some of the professionals that work in those communities. We also worked with the high school counseling office to design an online job board. This was born directly out of suggestions that came out of the committee, in that there are a lot of internships and jobs that are available in our community, but students have a hard time connecting with those opportunities. So we designed an online job application, and we'll begin beta testing that with businesses in our community, and then there'll be one place on the district website where those opportunities that have been pre-vetted can live, so the students and parents can review them. And overall, we're on track for accomplishments that were focused as part of our first year in the plan. Thank you.
Very good, Ms. Lynch. Next on the agenda, Focus Area 3, Safety, Operational Technology, Facilities and Infrastructure. We have Dr. Sosnovic and Mr. Fretz.
Good evening. Mr. Fretz and I will be discussing Focus Area 3, Safety, Operational Technologies, and Infrastructure. With regard to operational technologies, the goal this year was to identify and, if decide upon, adopt a student information system to be utilized by the district. As you're aware, the board approved PowerSchool to be implemented at Methacton on February 28, 2017. Since that time, district staff have been actively building Methacton's instance of PowerSchool and loading it with data. The professional development plan for staff has been developed, and we've just held our first training for teachers this past Friday. In addition, a team of secondary staff members have been at the MCIU this week receiving very specific training on how to build schedules in PowerSchool. We are currently on target to meet our go-live date, which is set for July 1st, 2017. Regarding safety, we had two objectives to meet this year. The first is perform safety and security audits of the Methacton High School and Arcola Skyview campuses. These are scheduled to occur this spring and will be conducted by members of Pennsylvania State Police, Montgomery County Office of Emergency Management, and Methacton Administration. The assessment tool is designed by the Safe School Coordinator for the Montgomery County and Pennsylvania State Police. The second objective was to hold an informational presentation for parents on school emergency response terminology. This was completed November 9, 2016. Individuals involved included Arcola's Assistant Principal, Mr. Creedon, Arrowhead's Principal, Mr. Roberts, and Safe School Coordinator for the Montgomery County Office of Emergency Management, Mr. Beck, in addition to myself. The video presentation was uploaded to our website and also posted on YouTube for future viewing. I will now turn the microphone over to Mr. Fretz to update you on the objectives for facilities and infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Troy. Our strategic plan initiative was to develop a facilities assessment baseline plan that addresses and prioritizes the Methacton School District's facilities condition, reconstruction, repair needs. To begin with, we had a comprehensive facilities assessment study and workbook that was developed in 2016. These documents and others were being utilized as the basis for this plan and for to create a facilities work planning and future facility improvement actions. Also, as part of the facility planning and project development, opportunities for additional ESCO work would be considered. So as we're talking through, we part of it is our ESCO projects, and we did do one in 2015-16, and the evaluation of the 15-16 ESCO project has produced cost savings through analysis of the data that resulted from measurement and verification of the lighting and energy conservation measures. Schneider Electric had determined that the guarantee stated in the energy services contract will be exceeded by $444,533 for a total savings over 20 years in the amount of $3,635,569. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sosnovic and Mr. Fretz. And on to Focus Area 4. Focus Area 4 deals with district operations, financial management, human resources. I'll be speaking to that this evening. As you can see, the 2016 objectives were under district operations were to maximize third-party service agreements to improve operational effectiveness and efficiencies, leveraging data and systems. And the financial management focus area for 16-17 was to adopt standards for communication, quality, and utility of financial data concerning the organization. While we've made some progress in both of these areas, certainly much more work is needed. If I were to point to any area within the 5 focus areas that struggled, I would say that these 2 areas did, for the simple lack of a business manager who would typically be the person spearheading those efforts. But with respects to that information, the intermediate unit is working with us on that replacement, and we should see somebody in May. In regards to human resources focus areas, the idea for 2016 was to increase employee job satisfaction through annual staff feedback and implementation of target changes and support, as well as to improve the effectiveness and consistency of hiring practices. Under the job satisfaction, committee was formed, and the stakeholders began planning and looking at a timeline and a strategy, as well as questions that would be involved in such a satisfaction survey. The committee met several times, but eventually, after much work was completed, determined that it was in the best interest of that committee to hold off on submitting a survey out to the staff due to the large number of staff changes due to a building closure scheduled for next school year. And under improve effectiveness and consistency in hiring, the administrative subcommittee was formed and reviewed current methods and protocols for hiring at all levels within the district and collected data from other districts, as well as later on in that process, the data was reviewed and the plans were made to expand the committee to include parents and community members. The committee is currently slated to meet in May. And that concludes the Focus Area 4, and under Focus Area 5, we have co-chair of that committee, Ms. Rickey.
Okay, there are 2 main goals for Focus Area 5. The first being to increase the rate of participation in co-curricular and extracurricular activities for grades 5 through 12, because we know that students report greater satisfaction with their overall school experience when they are involved in school through these types of activities. We want to make sure that we are offering students opportunities that are of interest and are relevant to their needs as they move towards college and career. The second goal is to provide more consistency in offerings at our elementary buildings. As we experience shifts in elementary and our emerging communities, this is an ideal time to pull together everyone's ideas and be sure that we are providing opportunities that benefit all students. The strategic plan action steps for the 2016-17 school year were to begin planning for achievement of these goals over the next several years. To date, the committees have been formed and will meet later in May to formulate the action steps towards meeting these goals. These will include surveying students and families, as well as staff, to gain insight into the needs of each group, including both interest in different activities as well as ways that we can make these activities accessible to everyone. We are on track for accomplishing what we have set out for the 2016-17 school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rickey. She has played several roles for us in the strategic planning process, nonetheless on co-curricular activities and athletics, as well as on the academic side under Focus Area 1. And there are two more slides in our presentation for this evening. The plan focus for 17-18, simply just to reiterate the fact that we are on target with most of our areas. We outlined those that needed adjustments. We've continued to communicate those with the general public. Our strategic plan focus will be reviewed at our administrative retreat in June, and we'll be looking at reviewing that progress, adding to the plan where necessary, and setting additional measurable goals to continue this important work. Key focus areas for 17-18 is really to expand on the evaluation, review the data, continue planning, and begin implementation. Many of the things listed below there, like the implementation of the new student information system, is currently underway and will be in full force for the 17-18 school year. There'll be additional planning and implementation associated with facilities needs, and of course, under Focus Area 1, Dr. Katona and her team will be working on STEM program planning and implementation. Next, community engagement. I think it's important to realize that we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the community and the input that they provided and the support that they provided through this process. So with that said, while we've done a lot of work and we've communicated things out, I think that part of our planning as an administrative team is to figure out how to re-engage the community back into some conversations so that down the road, we can use them to help us reevaluate how well we've progressed. And then we also want to engage members in specific individual focus areas as outlined within the plan, specifically under operations and finance are two particular areas that are scheduled to have public participation. And we certainly need to continue to engage parents and community, faculty, and staff through surveys to inform change and measure our progress. So it's my pleasure this evening to share this information on the progress of the strategic plan for Methacton School District, a blueprint for success. I think that through the efforts of many, including the Board of School Directors, the administrative team, our staff, our students, our parents, and our community, we're well on the way to making a positive, impactful change here in Methacton. So I thank you for listening through this. Are there any questions related to the strategic plan? Sure.
One would be, I guess, for Troy, the college school training for teachers, how did that happen? What was the feedback from the first session?
Good, and I was actually the...
Troy.
Oh, so sorry. And I'll bring with me Ms. Ricky because she was actually the administrator. So I'll speak to the two that I went to, which was for the administration in the afternoon, and then how it's been going this week with the scheduling training, and I'll let her speak specifically to the teachers, okay? So the administrative training went well. We brought in a group of secondary members, counselors, and principals to prepare them for this week's training. This was a very intense week of training whereby they are actually building the entire schedule for the high school in Arcola, for next year in Power School. So imagine trying to prepare all of that in something that's foreign and brand new to you. So we did some prep work on them last week, which went really well. The IU came in and performed that for us, and then starting Monday, and they're there. We'll finish up tomorrow. They've been there all day, getting the knowledge, tools, and skills they need to actually conduct the build process for this schedule. They will then break for about a month and then rejoin that trainer again early June to wrap up the schedule and then just start to work various scenarios of loading kids into it and stuff like that. So far, from an administrative standpoint and the scheduling, really well. And I'll turn to Ms. Ricky to speak specifically to the high school teacher one.
Thank you. We were fortunate to have an in-service day last Friday for the high school, so we were able to take that opportunity to train the high school staff with the IU, as well as bring in representatives from the other building levels, so that moving forward, we'll be doing turnaround training. So I will be conducting training along with those folks who were able to be here on Friday at the other levels. So this is an opportunity right now to just kind of see the basics of the new student information system. We are working in a test server situation, so it's not our actual data, as that's not been loaded yet. But it gives all the staff the opportunity to see the important pieces that they're going to need, looking at their class lists, seating charts, how they're able to put in assignments so they get that preliminary idea, so that when the system does go live in July, they're able to get right into it. And then they'll also be provided with screenshots as well as videos that they're able to use to support their work over the summer. And then when they come back in the fall, we'll be able to do a quick refresher training for everyone actually working in their live environment. So it went very well. Teachers were appreciative of the opportunity to kind of see what it looks like, so that they're not as anxious about what they'll be seeing when they come back later on for next school year.
Sure. Any other questions?
The online job board, very happy to hear that being done. Just wanted to hear about the community confidence. Parents are looking for a first job, so it's the next one. That's a great job there. Mr. Rex mentioned the escalator details. If that could be provided to the board, I don't know if that's upcoming for the next property meeting. Details, we mentioned that. The last question was the employee survey for HR was put off. Is that a across the board consensus to push that off at the time, or is that more of an administrative side? It seems like if you only answer a survey or you put out a survey where you tie those columns and good times, you'll get one example, but if you strategically pull that away and wait till things come down, you'll get different. That's just maybe elaborate a little bit more on that.
I was not part of that committee team, but it was reported back by the chairs of the committee that that was the recommendation of the committee. That's as much as I can tell you at this point.
I had heard most of this at different committee meetings, but it was nice to hear it again and absorb it the second time. The only thing I hadn't heard a lot of was the communications and community outreach. I love it. I love the reaching out to the seniors. I heard a comment behind me, what do you consider a community? And I feel like you really covered the community. And I've been pitching this a lot, and I'm not trying to add more to your plate. I've seen a lot more emphasis on all the educational benefits here at Methacton. Being on the board for a year, I'm learning all the great things at Methacton. I would like to start screaming it from the mountaintops. I heard an insane story about someone moving recently to a neighboring district. And I won't tell you the reason they moved, but they moved to a district with larger class size, no educational field trips. So I know we're not in the process of saying we're better than this or that, but I would like to hear us scream from those mountaintops and actually do some little bit of comparisons. I work in a district where they have 27 first graders in some rooms. I work in a district where their fifth graders go to not one educational field trip. Their field trip is a bounce house face painting extravaganza in the parking lot. You know, we all should be proud of our outdoor education program and the additional educational opportunities our children are given here. And the things we're going to vote on. So if you could keep it up and let's start screaming it from the mountaintops, like a big, fat, excuse my not website knowledge, button that says, why should you come here? Because parents don't understand what we are giving our children here.
Angela.
I would say that I would remind you that it's a 6-year plan. So spread it out. That's okay. That's okay. We can only do so many things in the first year. We did talk a lot about, and I'll look at Kim because I know she was sitting in that room. We talked a lot about the whole concept of not just telling the story about the good things we're doing to our parents, but to other communities, because it's about marketing. It's about transitioning from just community relations to marketing while we compete for a limited number of students. So that's a really important focus, and we did set strategic objectives to do some of that work with our realtors and outreach with other organizations that can help support us in that effort over the balance of the plan. Okay?
Any other questions? Yes.
I have one regarding safety. So I guess this is
Dr. Sasala?
I noticed we did campus safety audits of upper elementary on to the high school.
Yes.
Just wanted to check with them what would be the addressing safety concerns before.
Sure, so-
Why we would do safety audits there.
Because per the strategic plan, we are focused on the high school and Arcola Skyview campuses this year. Next year will be the 4 elementary buildings. We have a year off, and then the cycle starts over again. So in that 6-year plan, it's basically phased for 3 years. So this specific focus this year was on this secondary campus. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Real quickly, it seems like we're doing pretty good against our timeline for this year, but I guess I would challenge you and the teams to look at the areas of, based on the information gathered, because it's a 6-year plan, doesn't mean we can't accelerate it all be prioritized. So I would think that as a superintendent, working with your cabinet, that we ought to take a look after 1 year, the key findings that they're trying to find here. And then does a priority focus based on some of the initial data gathering, findings, meetings, et cetera, that we should be considering a change or an acceleration or a reprioritization of something, and we would be surprised if it stays static.
Well, exactly.
I would just think that, there might be a rebalancing or a pivoting in certain areas. I'm not aware, but I got to think there would be some ahas that would be coming up with, kind of after the first year into the beginning of the second year, gaining traction with this. Because it should be, it's a great document, it should be kind of a really moving kind of thing that will change in prioritization. So I'll just challenge you as a supervisor to come back and report to the board on how those things may shift so that we know that the work's not going on in the background, but there's thought about what should be priority, more attention or less attention.
Yeah, excellent point. In fact, when we originally created the document, that was one of the major focuses of not only communication, but also revisiting and the ability to be flexible. So I'm not sure, I don't know my slides numbered, but near the end of the presentation here, we talked about being able to meet with the administrative team here in June, review our progress, make some adjustments, and then communicate those adjustments out. So we'll certainly do that with the board as well as the community, make sure everybody's apprised of what the plan is specifically for next school year in respect to the overall plan as it sits now. So there may be, our priorities from time to time are going to change. And what we decide, a year and a half ago are important doesn't mean that they're less important a year and a half later. It just means that other matters might arise that overtake those things. So we're going to be moving this and making changes, and we'll come back with that recommendation.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. It's really highlight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point.
We prioritize this because that's why anybody so that's kind of really almost like reading report card for
Good. Appreciate those comments. Are there any other comments from the members of the board on the strategic plan? If not, we do have one other presentation this evening. And I do have the version of it. All these presentations are posted up to the district website. The agenda. Again, this presentation is on basically, it's our lessons learned as part of the Methacton High School Fields project. But before I begin, it should be known that the district is currently under litigation and on matters associated with the field construction project. As such, I will be presenting the information that I have here this evening, but may not be able to answer all the board's questions or even questions from the public. But it's my intent to share the information that I have here in this presentation as a means to articulate our lessons learned through this construction project in hopes that those things learned will allow us to be more productive, effective, and efficient with future facility-type projects that we're currently contemplating as part of a potential $70 or $100 million renovations to projects all across the campuses of the Methacton School District. So with that said, this evening I'm going to talk about a few areas. I'll probably be brief on several, spend most of my time talking about the fundraising efforts, cost and analysis, and lesson learned, but know that I'll be touching on the rationale for the project and the major improvements, and just briefly touch on the historical timeline. It should be noted that the rationale for the project is similar to the presentations going way back nearly almost 2 years. This was a project specifically designed to address the safety of our athletes and our students, to address the playability of our fields that were currently, in some instances, deplorable, and to address safety of our neighbors and our surrounding area, specifically around the stormwater management and control of water runoff. We also placed that this project would help with the quality of our athletic complex and get it on par with our academic quality within our district. And in addition, to bring the community together, things like Friday night football, the band concerts, and other evening events where our parents who work in the city, however, sometimes take a long commute in order to get home to see their children participate in some of the events that happen to usually be over by the time they would get back into our community. So the ability to have night events was certainly one of the rationales behind the overall project. And lastly, to maintain the quality of life in schools in our community. And I think we did just that. The major improvements included a couple items: campus stormwater management, a stadium field with the track, auxiliary field improvements, two softball fields, and field lighting on the auxiliary field as well as the stadium field. These are, easily summed up, but basically took a lot of effort from a lot of people to make it happen. The historical timeline, while it's available in print before you and on our website, it's important to remember that this really started back in about 2008 at a meeting. An athletic feasibility study was presented to the board at the time, and they considered moving forward with hiring an architect and starting to assess what it is that they need to do in order to improve the conditions. As the timeline progressed, and this isn't all the events, but certainly some of the most prominent ones, it takes us all the way through the board approving the $5.5 million bond in March of 2014, to the Warrior Pride campaign, donor wall being one of the most recent events to your far right, being unveiled just this past football season. So with that said, you certainly can look at that timeline. There's a lot of other documents on the district website to look at additional timeline material. Yes?
Where did you come in?
I came in right about here. Okay? So I came in October of 2013. This was, really, a project that was started by a lot of people The history suggests that there was a big gathering at Woodland Elementary Gymnasium where a lot of people got up and spoke about their concerns with the fields, and that the Board of Education at the time should address the issue, and they did just that. They started the ball rolling, and as you can see, it's taken a long time to get there. And there's a lot of reasons for that, not that I'll get into those this evening, but it's important to recognize that it took a lot of effort from a lot of people, and I can't thank everybody tonight, but I just want to say thank you to everyone who participated, from simply saying this is a good project to great financial efforts. You can see here that these were some of the original sketches of Plan Design K, so it went through a number of different designs. In fact, the original design was to have one field with no lights, and that would be in the neighborhood of about $3 million for construction. It went through a lot of iterations and discussions, and it turned into Plan K, which is kind of shown on the upper right and bottom right and the bottom left. And then you see up above here the Education Foundation and members of the school board involved in the kickoff for the foundation capital campaign efforts. A lot of pictures, and this is the donor wall that you see on the affixed to the back of the high school. That was unveiled just this past football season. It lists some of the major donors based on contribution areas, as well as donors on this side. So let's talk about the fundraising for a second, because this played a huge part in being able to get this program or get this project off the ground. So in November, we kicked off a $1.7 million capital campaign. We recruited a bunch of individuals, starting with gathering chairs, 7 advisory committee leaders, and an additional more than 25 other community members to serve on a steering committee. Basically, our pledges exceeded the original goal of 1.7. By the time we got to that, we recognized that we could probably use, and we could probably raise an additional amount up to $2 million through the use of selling signage. So to date, we have pledges in the amount of $1,754,511. We've collected to this point $889,000, and we have the remaining pledges spread over the next 3 to 4 years. In addition to that, the committee, while it hasn't been very active, does recognize that once approval from Worcester Township is granted to erect advertising signs on the fences of these fields, we believe that we would be able to raise the remaining $245,000 rather quickly through the sale of advertisement to reach the goal of $2 million. If we take a look at the project cost, and this is part of, when we get to the conversation about lessons learned, this is part of the big lesson learned. I got to tell you that it's going to take some time for me to go through this. And I'm going to explain what the chart looks like so that you have a clear understanding. So on the left-hand side, we have a list of vendors, and basically the majority of where the money was spent in order to get the project done. We have in this column to the right of it, of the vendors, the original budget amount. So in some instances, there was a budget for certain areas. In other instances, there was not a budget. And I'll explain that in just a minute. Under the contracted amount, this includes the original or the only contracted amount for those particular vendors. And if there happen to be change orders, this column here includes any of the change orders that would have occurred. In addition, these are the adjusted contracts, as so forth. So up on the top here, we can see these are the original vendors associated with the construction totals. The original budget for the construction project was $5.7 million. The original plan, being told, was that we were to borrow $5.5 million as a district, and we were to use all of that money for dealing with the expenditures of the project. But at the end of the project and the fundraising of $1.7 million, we would have had spent approximately $4 million on the project, with the fundraising taking place of the additional cost associated with it. If we look under construction amounts, under the original construction, we awarded $5.5 million worth of projects. There were change orders in the neighborhood of $854,000 for a total adjustment of $6,355,000. And basically that tells you we have a difference from the original budget amount to what we spent of $655,000. If we look at the next list, these are considered what are considered soft cost totals. Now, if you look at the soft cost totals, we did not have a budget associated with that. So it wasn't like we said we're going to spend $2 million, $3 million, or $500,000 on the soft cost. When I arrived, we were already probably in the neighborhood of about $500,000 spent before we ever got to the point we were looking to accept bids. So with that said, what I did here was I took the major categories of things like permits, fees, and related services, architectural fees and professional services, legal fees, and other miscellaneous matters. And what I tried to articulate were the vendors that predominantly, and it's asterisked here, that it predominantly created the cost for that category. So as you can see, for permits, fees, Worcester Township, that would be expected. Montgomery County, that would be expected. You can see that under permit fees and related services, under architect fees and professional services, Fidavia, which was our owner's rep, Zop Spector was our civil engineer, and Architera was our design architect. You can see the breakdown of what their costs were over that period. So as you can see, for example, back up under permits and fees, we spent $131,000. Under architect fees and professional services, $656,000. When we look at legal fees, we see that there are basically three vendors that predominantly cost us in those areas. Lamb and Macrolane, as well as Rhodes and Sinan, were particularly associated with an issue that occurred with a member of the community. Whereas the Shell, Bartle, and Dooley, their fees are listed here associated with the land development, litigation on the Lights project, as well as other legal matters associated with the construction of the project. When we look on our miscellaneous services, or miscellaneous matters, Tomlinson and Baumberger, Delger and Wittig, and Terra Landscaping, all contributed to doing some other field restoration matters associated with issues from the original contract work. So the soft cost totals are $1.2 million, with the adjusted construction totals of $6.3 million. We take a look at the differential for the soft cost. Obviously, there was no budget, so it cost us $1.2 million in the differential. Our total construction and soft cost combined is $7,565,000. So the total project cost over budget was $1.8 million. The estimated bond financing cost, which was a conversation that generally occurs in when we borrow money. I mean, our PFM would have come before us and said, this is what it's generally going to cost, etc. That wasn't necessarily that number there, nor this number here was really factored into this overall cost. But generally speaking, when we talk about the purchase of a home, and you ask me what what my home costs, I'll tell you it costs $300,000. Well, I don't talk it's not going to cost me $2 million if I finance it over 25 years. But in all fairness, we are dealing with public funds, and it's important that this information is disclosed. So that is what is predicted to be the cost of the financing. The total cost of the project then would be $8.4 million. The capital campaign fundraising of 1.7 was the original budget, and we're at 1.754. So those are the numbers. This is up on the website. I imagine that members of the board, just so you know, there were other drafts of this that were provided to the Finance Committee and to the Property Committee in review of some of the figures. The figures changed slightly, but not significantly. It still represents, the overrun that we had talked about. And all those costs associated are based on costs, acquired by February 28th of 2017. So if I go to the next slide and we talk about the analysis of that cost, in October of 2008, the athletic feasibility study by Hayes Lodge Architects with a concept drawing projected to cost about $3 to $3.5 million with an original plan of one field without lights and without extensive stormwater management. In January of 2015, we accepted bids in the amount of $5.1 million without lights, which at the time were projected to be about $842,000. The district planned for a $5.7 million construction project. The owner's rep cost estimated between $100,000 to $130,000. We chose at that initial phase to not hire them. We did hire them later, and probably several months later, if about 4 to 5 months later, if I recall correctly. Another interesting fact, if you look at this part right here, about 63% of the legal cost, or about $230,000, were associated with the field lighting, which saved us more than about $700,000. And I thought it was important that you understood that breakout. While our legal costs were high, our outcome by not addressing the ordinance would have been larger. And so what I want to share with you is, our settlement in the end saved us approximately $450,000 on additional fencing that was required under the conditional use decision. It saved us approximately $150,000 for additional lights due to the height requirements under the ordinance. So it was originally at, I believe, 85 feet under the ordinance, which would mean that we would have had to have 6 poles at the auxiliary field, and we were with the increase to 100 foot, we were able to reduce the pole, reduce the fixtures, and certainly save on electricity long term. This project also saved approximately $175,000 from the settlement, limiting our exposure to additional stormwater requirements under conditional use, such as further berming and additional plantings, other trees, etc. In addition, we were not required to redo the land development application, but basically this saved us thousands of dollars in time as well. I think lastly, I think it's important to note these fields were not restricted any further than contained in the original township ordinance. Under the conditional use decision, our use was restricted to the quantity and frequency of games and or practices that could be played on the fields during the week and jeopardize safe play, student play. So, for example, the lighting, the requirements would have been that we couldn't have anything more than 30-foot candles, which today we have 30 and 50-foot candles based on the need for safe play for those particular sports that require it. If we look in addition here, we have permit fees and other related costs prior to acceptance, acceptance of bids, about $588,000. The total cost of service fees and construction with change orders, $7.5. Interest and fees, we kind of went over all that in the previous slide. The total cost of the project, $8.4 million. Pledges, minus the pledges, so we're about $6.6 million. And the unbudgeted soft costs and change order constituted our overrun of about $1.8 million. So the lessons learned. Better planning and cost analysis are needed for future projects. Projects of similar size, scope, and complexity need third-party professional supervision from the outset. In my opinion, we should have had the owner's rep involved from the very beginning. And I don't mean the beginning of the construction, I mean from the beginning of the process. They would have developed they would have used their professional experience and judgment to help leverage the bids and the bidding process and to construct the bids to protect us in ways that we later are finding out have been troublesome. In addition to that, it is nearly impossible to predict the costs associated with challenging a municipality. There's no way I could have budgeted to say it would have cost us X to address the lights matter. It's just nearly impossible to predict that. But with that said, we should have had a budget of some degree put aside for that. Next, plan for greater contingency on the projects of similar size. I think this project kind of got started well in advance of my arrival. While I take full responsibility for its outcome, both the positive things and the negative things. I'm the one that did all this, but there were just some things in order that as I was trying to find my way through the district, I was also trying to find my way through this planning process, and I'd do things differently tomorrow if I had that opportunity. We need to include the financing and other similar costs in the overall cost projection from the outset. I think it's only fair to say, would a project like this be funded if it was going to be projected at $8 million? I don't know. I don't know that. That might be an interesting discussion. But at the time, we had the information that we had. The projects traversing multiple superintendents and school boards require clear historical documentation. I think, with that said, it's just a matter of where are the challenges and the issues associated with handing off these types of projects from one administration to another, from one board to another. A lot of discussions, something that traverses over a number of years. You lose sight of what's said and who said it and what are the facts versus what are people's opinions. And I think all of that is something that certainly needs better historical documentation on. And projects of similar scope need to include regular communication process. So what I mean by that is, while we were certainly in communication with the board during this, I don't think we did the due diligence of having regular public communications and disclosures of where we were with much of the project. I think going forward, that's probably one of the most important pieces to make sure that as we address some of the new facilities matters, that we set up a schedule to ensure that, if there's a change order or an issue or a concern or an overrun, that, that we're bringing that to the floor in a public meeting for discussion by members of the board and with input from the public. I think, lastly, these lessons shall serve us better to prepare and progress forward with future projects. And I got to say that this picture here, as a result of our football boosters being able to fly a drone overhead during, I believe it might be a homecoming game or one of our first evening football games, and I got to say that's a tremendous picture. And I also got to say, for all the lessons learned, I still have a smile on my face saying that it took a lot of people, a lot of time, and a lot of effort, and I can't thank them enough for their participation. So thank you. I can take questions on this when we go back to our seats. That would probably be the most appropriate. Thanks.
All right, thank you everybody for all the presentations. That was kind of a marathon of presentations, but I think they're all valuable and everything. Originally, I asked Dr. Zerbe to put this presentation together because around the Fields project. So it's the biggest project we've done in recent history in terms of development and investments and everything. So it's important that we take a critical eye to what was done well and what we'd change going forward. And also really try to put our arms around what are the realistic costs to the school district for any of these large projects we have coming up. You know, when you look at the numbers, I think with the change orders and stuff is roughly a 10-15% overrun, but you know, if you do that every year with $10 million and then you finance that, that adds up to quite a little bit of money. So hopefully we'll be coming in under budget on things. Also, I think some of the items are very particular to this particular project, such as the legal fees. Based on when I've looked at it, I've seen discussions around putting lights on the fields all the way back to the year I graduated high school, 1983. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but I found documentation on that. So, you know, a topic like that's been talked to for so long between school district and township, you know, you could expect some legal fees around trying to sort that out, and that's a bit of a unique situation there. But to your point, Dave, about, you know, pulling out some number to put into budget to recognize that there's going to be that cost, even if it's a wide swag at what it would be, you know, a lot better for us going forward on this. And really the point too about the changing dynamics of personnel, you know, superintendents don't spend 40 years at the same school districts anymore. School boards change, you know, we got every election there's either 4 or 5 seats up. So there's a lot of people and the rest of the cabinet that, you know, could be changing over the life of these projects. So better documentation and having things in a good sense of how to hand off and transfer knowledge and information, even from a board perspective, as you have new board members in. This year this time around, we had kind of a unique situation where we had probably the maximum number in terms of transition. So, you know, I think in that case, some of the previous board members helped out a lot with the sharing of knowledge, but, you know, continue to try to focus on documenting and being able to, at every level, transfer that knowledge and pass it along as the transitions happen. So thanks again for pulling all this together. I think there's a lot of work in consolidating these numbers into the individual line items, so I personally appreciate all the work you and the others put into this. Do we have any specific questions from the board members on the presentation? Mike?
I just have one question here in terms of the project costs with the estimated bond financing costs and how they weren't included, which, you know, seeing this now for the third time after the property finance and now tonight still blows my mind that wasn't included in the original. But do you know how that calculation was derived at? I was trying to play around with some numbers here. And if my recollection is correct, I think that we entered into a variable rate loan. So I think that this $870,000 that we have listed here was the original amount.
It is the original amount,
over
correct.
those 10 years. So
That's correct.
I think that even though we have this, you know, estimated it, I think the last presentation from PFM had it almost at $100,000 more per year, between 80 to 100,000 more. So that could add a substantial increase to that number. So just say maybe if we could follow up with the details of that for the next finance committee meeting.
I mean, that's accurate. The number that I presented was the number that was on the original Emmaus bond projection. And I think you're accurate. It's about $100,000 more in the most recent one. Now, again, with a variable rate, it might be up this year. It might go down the next. I mean, I can't predict that. I mean, I can give a range if that's a better way to articulate the information.
Yeah, I don't know that we'll see rates those low again, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know either. I think the point, though, regardless of what that number is, if it's $100,000 more or whatever, I think the challenge, and you articulated it well, that, it wasn't part of the original discussion in terms of, what the overall project construction budget would be. However, it certainly was part of the discussion when we borrowed the money. It just wasn't synthesized in a way that it was all lined out together.
Okay. And I totally agree with your lessons learned on that last slide, I believe it is, that I think this is important for us to keep in mind with all the facilities repairs and things that we're planning in the future, that we need to keep all of this in mind for all of these projects, I would say. Thank you.
I think this is a great report that you've done for us. Thank you, Dr. Zerbe. One of the things that you mentioned under major improvements is the campus-wide stormwater management. Are we finished with that aspect of it?
No.
And would you not consider that part of this project or not?
I would. However, that's not complete yet.
Okay, so you can't ascribe cost to it, but you perhaps have some estimates at this point.
Yeah, we approved some bids on it. We don't have the final numbers, so this was the cost that I've incurred up to February 28th of 2017.
Okay, and so sort of tying that together with the amount of money that you still expect to collect, which is about $865,000 on the pledges, will that be enough to cover? I mean, if we won't have to take it out of any place else, is I guess my point. When we worry about what our budget is going to be, are we going to be able to cover that, say, with the funding we receive for the rest of the project?
I can't specifically answer that. I don't know that information this evening, but I can certainly get that answer for you and the rest of the board members.
So does that mean you think it could be more than $865,000?
I don't think so, but
Okay.
I don't have the numbers in front of me.
Okay. And you say this is over 3 or 4 years that you're going to receive this, expect to receive this money. Is that sort of evenly divided so that next year we could have, say, 200 and some thousand, the following year the same amount?
Two of our largest donors are part of the 4-year program, and so they have even distributions of dollars across.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks again. Now moving on to the reports. The first one up would be the Finance Committee, Mr. Ryan.
Thank you. The Finance Committee meeting took place on April 12th. Meeting started at 6:31 p.m. All members of the committee were in attendance. The meeting was nice and short at about approximately 4 hours long. We had a lot on the agenda that night, and I'll try to go through the minutes as quickly as possible. They are posted to the agenda tonight for anyone who would like a little bit more detail. The monthly reports were gone over each month as usual. List of bills, questions. The treasurer's report was reviewed with no questions. There were no budgetary transfers for this month. In the expenditure and revenue reports, there were some questions regarding interest and principal payments, a couple different accounts. Dr. Zerbe will follow up with the committee for answers to these questions. The first of the discussion topics that evening was the 2017-2018 IU bid summary. This was actually discussed quite a bit at the work session last month. The IU bid summary was reviewed by the committee with several questions regarding the use of the IU bids. As I mentioned, Dr. Zerbe did provide some clarification with this in the work session last week. Also talked about at this time was the North Monaco Technical Career Center budget for 2017-2018. This item is up for approval this month at tonight's meeting. The budget was reviewed with one question regarding the tech center's debt. The big item that evening was the 2017-2018 budget update and timeline. Dr. Zerbe went over the most recent April update to our budget. The presentation was made available following the work session last week and is up for full board, this month's work session. Many of the slides have been updated, including the 5-year projection, the concise summary, assumptions and comments, and all the PDE detailed slides. Revenue updates include 2 increases to the state subsidy. These 2 state subsidies are actually what we're currently receiving this year, so they are accurate as of this moment. There was mention that the transportation subsidy is in jeopardy with some conversations at the state level. Current county assessment data will be updated for the May presentation. In terms of expenditures, expenditure items that were updated were the ELA textbook purchases, staffing reductions, medical prescription and dental costs, transportation services, etc. The budget in its current form contains a 2.5% tax increase with an amount of approximately $1.8 million in unallocated expenses. These are expected to be used across several areas, inclusive but not limited to facility repairs, employee contracts, etc. Several members of the Finance Committee supported the use of the 2.5% tax increase for the district needs. The Finance Committee will be presented with a proposed preliminary budget in May, and the board will vote to approve this preliminary budget at the May board meeting. There was a brief discussion on an auditor RFP. The committee as a whole came to the conclusion that yes, we do need to do this. However, the committee was split in terms of whether this was the correct time to do that. With all that we have going on with school consolidation and other matters, it was determined and agreed to by the committee that we will bring to the board, I believe it's for a vote this evening, a 1-year extension with our current auditors, Major and Mastro. Dr. Zerbe provided a update for a business services director position. The IU received 16 applications so far. The IU will do the first round of interviews, and finalists will be brought to the Finance Committee for the second round of interviews. There was briefly talked about the facilities assessment funding. Dr. Zerbe mentioned that the administration and the property committee are working on a master plan, and we'll have more information regarding this in May. The strategic plan update, which you saw this evening, unfortunately is the one area of the strategic plan which we're a little behind schedule, having not had a director of business services for much of the year. And finally, we were presented with the same Methacton High School project review that was seen this evening. We did hold courtesy of the floor where 2 members of the public commented. Mr. Bickelman commented on the proper utilization of the suspense account, not paying charter schools in advance, real estate tax calculation, accounting for the ELA textbooks, and the use of the $1.8 million of unallocated expenses. Mr. Andrews commented on facilities neglect over the years, and instead money was used for salaries. He suggested using all $1.8 million for facilities repairs. The meeting adjourned at 10:33. Thank you.
Thank you. Now on to the Property Committee, Mr. Dorn.
Thank you. The Property Committee met on April 10th. The meeting was called to order at 6:30. All committee members were present. We had several discussion topics. The first, and this is a follow-up to Brenda's question, was the stormwater management. Mr. Fretz gave us an update that the contractor was mobilized with equipment and material, and initial work was to focus on swale 4 and then proceed to the stormwater basin. We'll get further reports in the coming months. The varsity softball field, we got an update. The tarp had been removed. There's several areas that still need remediation. If the public would recall on the board, we were very late seeding due to some of the litigation issues with our initial vendor. And at this point, the field is not playable, and it was going to be a week-to-week assessment between Mr. Fretz and the athletic department and the softball coaches as to whether the field could be played on this year, and would strictly be in their court to determine that. We got an update on the capital project proposals. This was a part of the master plan. Mark and Dan from Fidavia provided us an update. They continue to work through the planning. We most likely will not most likely, we're not going to do any real major projects this year. It was thought that we would take a step back and make sure we have the planning and sequencing correct, and our priorities were set correctly, that we were budgeted correctly, and we had the appropriate time to go out for bids and get a good stable of competent bidders versus potential bidders who may be just leftovers that didn't get any other bidding work. So we wanted to have a little better process around that. They will continue to work on the phasing of the projects and what small projects we may do this summer, and this will be a continual report out during the property committee meetings. We talked a little bit about the transition process. I think we got a pretty good update on that from Mrs. Gorla, and Mr. Fretz continues to work with her and the impacted schools to make sure that they've got the right processes and bidders to help work closing things down and moving things around to their new destinations. We spoke about the middle school road. This is a road that comes off of the Arcola Skyview campus, and there's a review underway to really determine if all or some of the buses should exit out Middle School Road in order to alleviate congestion that happens in the morning and the afternoon drop-offs and pickups, and in order to improve some safety around the location for our students and anybody there. The committee did question the practicality of all buses leaving via one exit route, and we'll get further information on that as they continue to work through the process and the logistics of potentially using Middle School Road. And lastly, as Dr. Zerbe presented, we saw the first draft of the field update project, and I think Dr. Zerbe should be committed, complimented, not committed. Well, he probably should be. He probably should be committed from having to live through that, but complimented on a good job presenting, kind of some tough information. Maybe that was a slip. Maybe it's true, Dave. I don't know. But I thought that, the condensed version that the public saw, while you may not be pleased with the numbers, I think there's a number of things that were learned and will help guide the district and the facilities and the financial side of things as we move through this master plan project, which has a lot of additional dollars at stake. And one of the big lessons learned about the owner's rep is something that was rectified already with the planning process. So we're ahead of the game to some extent, and obviously we've talked about financing. It's just a matter of figuring out the logistics behind that. So some of the lessons learned are already bearing fruit for future projects. We did have courtesy of the floor. There was a question on who owns the master plan. And that was from Mr. Earnshaw, and he appreciated the update on the fields and is looking for better transparency in future projects. Mr. Winters inquired about litigation costs on the field project, and also the Middle School Road and the master plan execution to date. And Mr. Navarrete appreciated the post-audit report, inquired about the perpetual obligations, and wanted to know if an email blast was necessary to the Worcester community leaders to support the signage ordinance. The meeting adjourned at 8:18 p.m.
Thank you. The comedic side of Scott Doran came out tonight and will be here all year. Moving on now to the Education Committee, Ms. Reese.
The Education Committee met on April 3rd. Everyone was in attendance except myself. I apologize. I was nursing two Reese family members. Mrs. Hackett took over and provided very detailed notes that are attached. I will briefly go over them. First, Dr. Engstad presented information on the ESL program in the district, noting that there's a new acronym for all of us to learn, ELD for English learners. Dr. Engstad noted that 40 kindergarten registrants are eligible for ESL testing. The district provides that testing, the parents make the decision. Currently, we have 19 students in grades K to 1, 9 students in grades 2 to 4, and 15 students in grade 5 to 12, for a total of 43 students. She also went over some funding information. Dr. Sosnovic was next with discussing the expansion of the one-on-one Chromebook program, with the continuation of providing Chromebooks for grades 10 and 11. There are also labs at Arcola Intermediate School in certain subject areas. There's been a lot of positive changes based on this one-on-one initiative. The teachers and students are having a lot of online conversations. Everybody reports just a better sense of learning using the technology. He did note that there are some limitations, particularly in math and science. So the next version of the Chromebooks will provide a better opportunity to manipulate the screen with science classes using Veneer. And that there will be more Chromebooks distributed the next school year, based on the reduced number of switches and more access to wireless capabilities. Textbook recommendations, we've been talking about this a lot, but Dr. Katona provided us some more information on the cost of the new K-5 ELA materials, which we'll be voting on this evening, and there was a reduction of about over $30,000 in that cost that can be paid over 4 years at no interest. And there's also going to be reduction in time and effort for reduced copying that won't be as necessary with the current curriculum that we're using. Dr. Katona filled us in on the kindergarten registration that took place the week of March 13th. I'm sure this number has changed since then, but at the time, there were 224 registered to date, compared with 194 at the same time last year. Last year's total registrations were 270. Last year, in addition, one change we made is last year all the registrations occurred at Woodland. This year, they took place in all of the schools, which was they noted a better idea for parents. Dr. Katona also filled us in on the ESA program, which is the first year. I probably said that wrong. Did I say that wrong? I can't even keep up with all the acronyms. ESSA. Do they say ESSA? ESSA, okay. Wrong, then my phonics is not always the best here as I teach a little secondary education. And that Dr. Katona noted that Title IV may enable Methacton to receive additional federal funding, but at the same time, there's a question as to whether Title II funds would decline. So as always, we wait for Pennsylvania to fill us in, and the Finance Committee fills in the dots as they go along. The committee went over the ELA teacher on assignment, which we are voting on this evening, and we did decide to discuss further topics for the May meeting when the entire committee could be there. Dr. Sosnovic went over the enrollment report, and he did note there was a decline of 26 in the number of students in the district from October to March. A courtesy of the floor, John Andrews questioned whether the cut in time on testing would be a reduction in the number of tests taken, education for manufacturing jobs and development of technical skills. The meeting adjourned at 8 p.m.
Chris, can I just, protocol, but I just wanted clarity. I mean, Brenda did a fantastic job with these notes, but I just want to make sure that one thing is clear, and maybe Troy can verify. It maybe wasn't clear from my perspective, but because of changes in savings in the IT budget, the expectation is that Chromebooks will be delivered to the 7th
9th, and 10th grades next year. So there's an additional grade being added for distribution of Chromebooks in the following school year. So that's changed from last year, voted on 222. So.
Thanks, Paul, for pointing that out. All right, on to the policy committee. Ken?
Thank you. The Policy Committee met on April 5th. The meeting was called to order at 6:31 p.m. The full committee was in attendance along with Dr. Zerbe. The net result of the meeting was that 12 policies were moved to first read, which you'll see on the agenda here tonight. A few of the highlights of our discussion. We've had a policy on lesson plans on our agenda for about as long as I've been on the Policy Committee, and we've decided that we're going to put it on hold for right now and come back to this again in October of this year. A couple of other things of note. We have a policy on student surveys that we've been discussing a lot. One of our primary concerns in that policy is the way that student privacy is handled. So we decided as a committee that we're going to follow up with the solicitor as well as PSBA to find out if we need to have a separate policy on student privacy and what things we can put in place to protect our students. Another policy that we discussed in further detail, the payment of bills. We want to make sure that this policy is in line with our practice, so we're seeking feedback and recommendations from PSBA on that one. Another finance-related policy that we had discussion on was our fund balance policy. The committee has recommended a change in the policy, which is here on first reading tonight, moving the unassigned general fund balance from 2% to 4%, which makes it more in line with best practices for school finance. We talked about policy 709 for building security, which is being developed now that we have lobby guard being implemented in our elementary schools. And we had a policy for school volunteers that was up for discussion as well. We had questions about the timeline and process for handling the expiration of clearances and how members of the community are notified. Under new business, we talked about a topic that had come up in our previous board meeting regarding the videotaping of executive sessions, and at this time, our committee did not recommend making any changes to our policy. During courtesy of the floor, we had Ms. Mary Hull, who commented on policy 916 about school volunteers and gave us her experience on how school clearance expirations have been handled. It sounds like our process is working quite well. She was notified well in advance of her clearances being due for renewal, and she also gave us some feedback on how the lobby guard system is working or not working in some of our schools, and Dr. Zerbe assured her and us that this is something that they're working on, and as of now, I believe all of our issues are being dealt with, and we'll be able to have a policy on building security moving forward. The meeting was adjourned at 9:01.
All right, thank you. Now on to the North Monco Technical Career Center.
We met on April 19th. The calendar and the budget were approved. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, we'll go back. The calendar and budget were approved as we are approving the budget or voting on the budget this evening. The big news out of this technical school is there is an Honor Society induction this Thursday, and we have some really fantastic students being inducted. I hope I do their names justice. Tony Ellis in 10th grade for automotive technology, Roman Santoro in 10th grade for automotive technology, Kelly Warzak, who's in 12th grade for cosmetology. This is her second time being inducted, and if many of you heard about the Skills USA competition that went on, and it got a lot of publicity because Governor Wolf was there, Kelly was also there because she was a first place district winner, so she was able to go to the national, and I'll have more information on that after our May meeting. Patrick Maloney in 11th grade for diesel truck technology, and a third-time inductee, Jeffrey Vernacchio in 12th grade for diesel truck technology. I'm not attending on Thursday night, I don't think. I'm still trying to look at my schedule, but congratulations to those students. And just a reminder, as we all know, I'm a big fan of the technical school. Don't forget the bakery and restaurant. Fantastic if you have time during the day.
They always get a good plug from you. Thank you. And I apologize, I skipped over the IU.
Our meeting is tomorrow night, so I have no report yet.
Yeah, I knew that. All right, moving on to the student board representatives.
So Aubrey Lehman, a junior, recently won the Lower Providence Optimist Club essay contest. The topic of the essay contest was chasing optimism in challenging times. As a result of winning, her essay was then entered into the district level competition where she placed second. And the Atlantic Central District of the Optimist International Club includes Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Upper Delaware and Lower New York. Also, AP testing begins next Monday, May 1st, and continues through May 12th. And the Methacton High School Orchestra concert is April 26th from 7:30 to 9:30.
Prom was held last Friday, April 21st, at Presidential Caterers, and the theme was Enchanted Forest. Post-prom was then held afterwards with the theme, Oh, the Places You'll Go. There was a great turnout at both events. The blood drive was held on Friday, April 7th. Students and community members had the opportunity to donate blood. The Senior Art Expo is open to the community, and it's this week. The dates are Friday, April 28th from 6 to 9, Saturday, April 29th from 12 to 4, and Sunday, April 30th from 12 to 3. And this is located in the MHS library.
Thank you. Now on to the communications report. Ms. Lynch.
Methacton was recently selected as one of the 2017 Best Communities for Music Education in the United States. This is a significant honor that reflects the partnership between music educators, students, administrators, school board, parents, alumni, and music boosters. And I want to give special thanks to the music teachers who went through the application process and helped bring this honor to the Methacton School District. And they provided information about the programs and also completed several forms, so we appreciate their support. The Best Communities in Music Education Award is supported by the National Association of Music Merchants Foundation. This organization has recognized only 527 outstanding music programs across the entire United States, and only 39 from Eastern Pennsylvania. So there's over 500 school districts in Pennsylvania, 501, so this is a significant honor for Methacton. Senior citizens will have breakfast and tour the art show privately before Saturday mornings, having it open to the public. And teachers and student artists will be on hand to talk about their pieces and also meet the senior citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Now on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have one comment. Again, this year, I was amazed at the work and effort by members of the post-prom committee and their work in putting together such an enormous event, as well as an event that's designed to keep our children safe. And without their help and support, that event wouldn't have been possible. It takes a lot of sweat, I know that, because I was in the cleanup crew for the third year in a row, and we missed the wrestlers this year. We usually have them to help us move chairs, but I had to move some chairs this year, so I'm a little sore. But nonetheless, I want to thank all the volunteers that were involved in that process for making the post-prom a continued success. That ends my report.
Okay, and before we move on to the public comment on the board action items, based on emails I got today and some of the activity on Facebook, people might want to talk about some specific moves that were made in the administration of the buildings. The appropriate time to do that would be at the public comment at the end of the meeting, because we don't have any specific action items related to that particular topic. So open up the floor to any public comment for the related action items that we're going to be voting on. Anyone? John, I think your hand was up first. So.
John Andrews, Lower Providence. I have a number of items that I can go through quickly. The first one is on the list of bills. There's there's an outfit by the name, in the general fund expenses, is an outfit with the name of Orbit Software, and it's about $10,000 for Audubon closure agreement and transportation 1 of 6, and none of that made sense to me, so maybe it doesn't make sense to people voting on it either, and deserves some clarification. With regard to the special education supervisory support services, there's a approval requested to have the intermediate unit come in at a cost of $450 a day, and that's from April 18th through June 30th, and where the school for the students ends around June 10th. It's not clear to me what supervision activity is needed from June 11th through June 30th. With regard to the establishment of positions, there's one approval that's requested is for a K-12 career counselor. And this is a new item. I don't think it came up at the Education Committee meeting this month, and it did not come up at the working session of the board last week. So, I think people haven't had a chance to have any discussion on that. And we already have guidance counselors at all the schools. Yes, I would agree that more effort is needed in career planning, but I think this is a position that could be tabled for fuller explanation, unless someone has a lot of money. With regard to the textbooks, I was one of a few people who've taken a look at those. And with regard to the Wonders books, I think there's a lot of effort that went into making things readable in a pleasant way. But one thing I noticed is that these textbooks, which have the standard fill in the page on the back of the front cover in terms of the student and the grade and the year and all of that, which is a standard thing for probably at least 100 years in this country. But you get to the pages, and the I don't know how long these books are expected to last, but the paper that the books are printed on is excessively thin. I see lots of books with thicker pages, like library books, fiction books that don't get read a lot of times, that are on much better paper. So, maybe students will be handed out with white gloves to handle the books, to get them to last 2 or 3 years rather than a few months. And with regard to the Glencoe Algebra 1 book, I think it's absolutely excellent and very challenging, and I think the students are going to benefit from that greatly. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Kathleen Barone, Lower Providence, former school board member. I am asking to comment on number 10A, number 3. My question that I am very curious about is, why are you altering the high school educational program? You're cutting 7 classes from the high school. The enrollment drop is not at the high school. It is at other levels in the district. Over 5 years, we probably lost approximately 50 students there. We don't have the drop. There's no reason you should be cutting 2 math classes, English, science. We just had a review of our strategic plan, which focuses on the STEM program, and you're cutting these 3 major classes. I really think you need to look at that. I mean, are you trying to get down to a skeleton crew so that we have nothing going on over there? I mean, take one of the math teachers, make them a math specialist. Do something. You can be creative. There are many things. We're the 21st century. There's so many things. You just talked about all the core Chromebooks. Start helping the kids with that. Use a math teacher to do some of that. I mean, there are many things we can be doing.
If I may interrupt, I just want to make sure that there's not a misconception. I might not be hearing you correctly, but I need to make it clear to the board as well as to the public that we are not eliminating programs. So the math programs that we have in place today are going to be the math programs that we'll have in place next year, and for as long as we determine that we need to have those programs, as well as the other programs that are listed here. This is a review of the staffing associated in the high school, as well as other buildings across the district that we look on a regular basis to make sure that we are properly staffing our programs to meet the student needs. So there's no elimination of programs. The language that you see here is commonly referred to the language associated with the furlough process. So it's not, we're not eliminating any programs, but I am recommending that a reduction of positions are needed, and it will likely take the average of the enrollment per class from 19 per student to 21 per student at the high school level. Now, I want to be clear on several things related to that. That does not necessarily mean that every class will be at 19, was at 19, or in the future will be at 21. For example, physical education typically has a larger class size anyhow. So they would be closer to 30 than they would be to 21. But classes, the core content area classes like math, social studies, sciences, those are in that range of the 21 per student. And so this information has been reviewed by the high school principal, by consultants, and myself, and is part of the recommendation for the board this evening to consider. So I just wanted to make it clear that we're not eliminating programs. The programs that we have in place now are the programs that we're going to have in place next year. It's just we're going to be utilizing new software as part of the scheduling process, and to leverage the use of technology to better schedule our students and to get them better access to more of their course selections. So all of this combined is to provide a better access for students at an efficient and effective process.
Okay, well, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but it says right on this page that you're altering the educational program. So that tells me that you're altering the educational program. And you're also cutting 7 positions from that school. So I'm not going to argue semantics while I'm standing here.
I can understand what you're saying there based on the language there, but that is the typical language associated with the reduction of professional staff associated with this recommendation. But we're not changing the programs.
Well, changing a program will be changed if you have 7 less teachers to teach. So it's going to make an impact, it's going to make a difference, and I really think you should reconsider that. That's 7 positions.
It's going to change from 19 on average to 21 on average.
Doctors, not to interrupt, but the classes are already bigger than 21. There's several classes that are bigger than that. You may have a couple that are smaller. From what I understand, you're talking about combining some language classes, the honors with the regular. That's a bad idea, too. That's a very bad idea. I don't know how you can combine an honors class with a regular class when they move at significantly different levels. So I just think this is something that you should really think about before you cut 7 people from your programs. I mean, it's going to alter a program. You can say that it's just verbiage, but it's going to make a difference. So please consider.
Anybody else, public comment?
Joe Bickelman from Audubon. I'd like to address the establishment of positions. We're hiring a temporary position for K-5 English and Language Arts teacher on assignment for the implementation of the new curriculum that we bought. I don't know why current staff can't handle that. I'm sure they looked at this material and analyzed it and see how it was going to be delivered before they chose the product. And I think somebody can be a point person for that instead of hiring a temporary position, a teacher for that aspect. Also, I want to address item number 2, the K through 12 career counselor. If you hire somebody for $70,000, it can approach $115,000, $120,000 when done with it. You already have guidance counselors. You have 6 counselors at the high school, 2 at Arcola, 2 at Skyview, and 1 at the 4 remaining elementaries for a total of 14 counselors. I never heard of this position. I hope it wasn't discussed in executive session because it doesn't seem like a topic to be talked about in an executive session under the sunshine laws, because you're talking about a new program. It doesn't involve anybody's names or any privacy or anything like that, so hopefully it isn't talked about there. It would be ideal for a HR committee, since we're about 70% of our budget deals with salary and benefits. We have no HR committee. But I just don't know what... I mean, you have 6 counselors at the high school. You're eliminating 7 positions based on enrollment decline. John shows me the decline of 200 students at the high school from 2011 to 2017. He just showed me the report. There's 200 less students. So you have 6 counselors there. I just don't know what K through 4 career counselor is all about, or K, at the elementary level. What's the complexity of a child's knowledge of what they want to be and the curriculum that must be directed to get them there? I just don't understand the need for this position, and not being hashed out at committee meetings and come up through a work session and things like that. It just wasn't done, and now it's up for vote tonight. The elementary math specialist, I don't know why there's a need for that. You have these teachers are going to be in 4 buildings rather than 5. I'm sure they'll get together to discuss their issues, problems and things like that.
Sorry, that position is to work with children.
Right. I thought we had people working with children already.
They are specifically working with children who need help,
Right.
who need remediation.
People from the classroom.
They get additional math help.
How many elementary math specialists do we currently have?
We currently have 1, yeah, I wanted to let him finish, and then I was going to address some of his issues, but we have 1 math support specialist in the elementary level, and actually in the whole district.
I don't know how you incorporate more individualized instruction in the classroom, where somebody's having a problem or something like that, or I guess this math specialist will actually go out into a separate area and work with Johnny or Susie that's having problems, that isn't getting it. So I just don't know the need for that one. The next one, the textbook adoptions in 11A.
Well, would you like me to address the staffing positions? Because I think there's some questions that I could probably answer for you this evening. If the board's okay with my...
The elementary math specialist?
So all the positions you just mentioned.
I didn't know where that was talked about either. I didn't hear about that one either anywhere.
Well, let me...
But it's being voted on tonight.
Can I speak about it? I want to address all your questions.
You're running the meeting. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I was trying to be polite. I didn't want to interrupt what you were saying.
It's your ball game.
Okay. So the K-5 ELA position been discussed in quite a number. And the position itself is designed to take a current staff member out of the classroom and to help assist the implementation of the new ELA series, with the costs associated with that being a long-term sub. And that's the estimated cost of about $49,000.
No, that's not the total cost. That's salary.
That's the long-term sub cost to the STS company.
Oh, that is?
It is, yes.
Teacher on assignment? $49,000
The teacher on assignment is they get their regular salary, so the teacher comes out. The additional cost to that matter is a long-term substitute fills in their classroom. We've been doing this for the past several years, specifically with the implementation of our math program. For next year, we have one teacher on assignment for math in K through 5, and we'll have one for ELA for the implementation of the new series. Then on to the career counselor position, as well as the math specialist position. Both of them we're asking for the approval of the position this evening and then for discussion in May for a potential appointment for those positions. The purpose here is the K-12 counselor is designed to address Act 339. And if I may just lean over and ask Ms. Katona to talk about Act 339. I think it's important for the board as well as the public to know generally what that is about. Dr. Katona, if you wouldn't mind speaking to Act 339.
Okay. Act 339 is a comprehensive guidance plan focused on college and career success. And when we say comprehensive, it is K to 12. There are a number of requirements, including description of guidance services provided to students for career planning, identifying how the district is working to help students from K on up to make informed decisions about career and college choices, working how the district works with all students in determining career objectives, making transitions into the workplace, parental involvement, liaison activities with community agencies. There's a great deal involved with needing to get partnerships with community agencies to assist the district in its work with the plan. There's a great deal in terms of the evaluation of what we're doing and how we're doing it. It's planning that the state has established professional development parameters around. The IU currently is working to have people come in. We went to one session last Friday. They're planning to have people come in throughout next year to help districts in Montgomery County work through the plan in its entirety, just to get it together, and then it will take work after that in terms of the implementation, the ongoing evaluation. There are districts in the area that do have college and career counselors in our immediate area. Many are focused just on 7 through 12, but that is their primary focus. There are, however, in the state some places where they do have the K-12 career counselors, and the Act 339 kind of jump-started them getting into that.
Thank you, Dr. Katona. One of the major aspects of the whole act really requires the district to monitor or track students after they graduate to see what their success rates are. And those success rates are going to parlay into the PA Future Ready Index, which is the new state report card. So it's a new part of the report card, a metric associated with that. So while it may not have been discussed, and I just want to be clear, it's not been a discussion. I provided a little bit of information in my Friday memo to the board. That's as much as they know. But I am asking for them to approve the position this evening. It doesn't obligate them to hire a person for it, because we do need to have more discussion through the Education Committee. Now, the issue really was about all the other changes within the district. We were in the process of addressing staffing associated with the closure of Audubon, with the high school and other areas within the district. It got out of sequence. So it should have been spoken about in the Education Committee and the Finance Committee in advance. But it will be done in May, and then the board can choose to hire a person if, in fact, they want to follow through with that. So there's no financial obligation to approving the position this evening, except that allows us to continue with the process of interviewing folks for the position. And that's the same with the elementary math support specialist. That is a position that's been needed since I arrived here. It's the number one topic on the request when I go and do my administrative roundtables with all the elementary levels. There used to be math support specialists in every elementary building just a few years ago due to cuts, and those changes have occurred. With the implementation of the new Math in Focus program, it's appropriate at this time to put that additional resource in there to help provide those supports for his children that are most struggling. And I think it's the right thing to do for our students, and it's the right thing to do to support the curriculum and the programming. And then the gifted instruction, it should be clear with that. You know, that's just a combination, and it's elimination of a half a position overall.
Getting back to the guidance counselors, what Mrs. Katona described there to me was what these 14 counselors should be doing. Everything you said. There's no requirement to hire somebody for Act 339, right?
There is not a requirement.
Right.
I failed to mention another piece of it, which deals directly with the curriculum in terms of the career and work standards and the way that they are distributed throughout in all of the curriculum, because the idea of Act 339 is that it isn't the responsibility of the counselors alone to help students determine how they're focused on a career or college or whatever it might be, that really needs to be throughout. The counselors have a number of responsibilities, as all of our professionals do, and that certainly is something that they deal with our children. However, this is something that's more widespread than just counselors, but the leading of the plan, the implementation of the plan, making sure of the follow-up on the plan really would be very helpful to have someone who is in that position.
14 counselors you have here. It sounds like somebody at the state passed an act to light a fire under somebody, because everything you delineated in those responsibilities should be the duties of the counselors here. Okay, the next thing I have has to do with the textbook adoption. The Glencoe Algebra, is that copyright correct, 2018? And then we have so I can copy this book and make some money on it before 2018, right? Why is it 2018?
I questioned that myself, and publishers have the option of using the current year or the year that is coming up for when it will most be used.
Right.
And that's what they chose.
Okay. And the tutoring writing is copyright 2001. And I understand this program is for what? To teach kids how to tutor other kids to write? Is that the course description for that? And the copyright's 2001. So I guess this is the holy grail of tutoring writing.
There are 3 books that they're using there. The one is a little bit older, but it has some basics in it for tutoring for writing. The others are more recent.
And what's the purpose of the course? To teach kids to tutor other kids to write? Is that it?
If you can finish up, we'd appreciate it.
I don't know why we're buying this book as a taxpayer. I don't know what it's for. What's its purpose?
The course is actually one that the teachers learned about through Colonial School District, where they have a similar course they call it Writing Fellows, and the students learn more in depth about communication, about research, about writing, doing analysis, a lot of skills that they're going to need as they move on in post-secondary. And so the course helps both the students who are the tutors, as well as when they actually turn around and help students, whether it's in English, in science, in social studies, whatever it might be, because different subjects call for different types of writing. And so they will then turn around and be able to help their peers a little bit more.
Okay, and the last item I have has to deal with the elimination of positions because of the Audubon closure. You know, it's just, you know, I'm surprised, you know, I'm disappointed I wasn't here when the enrollment projections came out for Skyview. And to miss the enrollment for Skyview by 1,200 to 1,500 kids or whatever, and cause that building to be built, $35 million, okay? And now you're having people being uprooted, being furloughed because of that. You know, I mean, that's just, you know, it just sickens me that happened. To miss enrollment by 1,200 kids, okay, and have that undercapacity problem that we have. And speaking of the undercapacity problem, hopefully we'll get another study of that based on the section review that we got tonight, and we can see if we solve that problem of underutilization in our buildings. And the taxpayers are paying $35 million plus for Skyview. And then there's other things that might come into play where we're thinking about restructuring our debt that could cost the district $8 million more to take care of these capital repairs. So it's just, you know, you have to go back and you just, you know, I don't like to, but you have to just see what it caused families. I mean, people lost their jobs here because of that ridiculous event that happened with this. You know, it's just a shame. It really is.
Thank you. Any more comment related to the action items? Candy, yeah.
Candy Alaba, Eagleville. Thank you, Dr. Katona, for explaining the 2018, because I thought that at first it was a misprint. So does that mean the publisher will most likely be releasing the text in 2018? That's why it's copyrighted?
We will have the book for the full year.
Okay.
But yes, they have that option.
To
Yes.
up the year if they would like?
Yes.
Okay. My only other question is on the tutoring writing. This is the 16-year-old book that's costing $32.67 a copy. And I know it's only $490, but I can go to a bookstore and buy a brand new book for $32.95. And that's retail. So I don't know if this is a wholesale price, but that's a lot of money for a 16-year-old book. I mean, I had a fight with a previous board to get 14-year-old English books replaced in this district that were being held together with duct tape. And I know English books really basically don't change. English is English. But we need to update the books. But I think getting a 16-year-old book, I mean, I know it's writing, but they might have want to update it. I don't understand. I would have went for the wholesale price, maybe to Amazon, and got the books a lot cheaper. I mean, I know it's $490, but those $400, they add up at the end of the day and at the end of the school year. Also, I don't know if you're aware that you have a school board meeting scheduled for Friday night. It's on the agenda. I caught it online, and I thought somebody might have caught it tonight before the meeting. But there's a meeting scheduled for April 28th at 7 o'clock. So, is it going to be here? Or, yeah. Did you just catch that too? I mean, I saw it this afternoon. I saw it last week, I think, and I thought, well, somebody will catch it by tonight. And then when I went online today, I looked and I went, the 28th, and honestly, I looked at my calendar to see what the date was. And then I came in tonight and I thought it would have been caught before this was printed, so maybe you need to correct that.
All right, thank you. Any more public comment related to the action items? Okay. All right. May I have a motion to approve the board meeting minutes of the special meeting held on March 15th, 2017, the work session held on March 21st, and the board meeting held on March 28th? Second. All those in favor? I should have asked for any comment, but I knew that there wasn't going to be any. Okay, the motion passes. Now on to the fiscal items. May I have a motion to approve the list of bills, treasurer's report, and bid summary as presented? May I have a motion pass second? Any comment? Kim.
To Mr. Andrews' question, the Orbit item, I'm not questioning the dollar amount or the purpose of it, but the description does raise a question of, it says Audubon closing agreement. I don't know if that's accurate, but the transportation project, one of 6, and the amount makes sense. So if you could clarify that.
Yeah, Orbit's, we, as part of the overall plan for doing routing and stop work for the next school year, we engaged Orbit Software to do that work. And this is part of the process, taking the boundaries that were provided by Malone and McBroom and doing an evaluation associated with the stops and challenges with that. So that was part of the work that they had done as part of our previous hire with them.
All right, any other comment? Brenda?
Just to be clear, we're looking at A, B, and D, is that right? Because there is nothing for C. Is that what you said, or did you just say A, B, and C? A, B, and C. Okay, thank you.
Any other comment? Okay. All those in favor? Motion passes. Now on to the Northmont Code Technical and the others. So,
Item D, bid summary.
Where's, oh, sorry. May I have a motion to approve the bid summary as presented? Second. Any comment? All those in favor? Thank you. Now moving on to, may I have a motion to approve the North Montco Technical Career Center budget for 2017-2018, a one-year extension to the contract for Major and Mastro Special Education Supervisory Support Services for the Methacton High School, and the MCIU District Cost Plan and the Student Settlement Agreement as presented. May I have a motion? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Or, sorry, Paul.
Sorry, I didn't ask to check this myself. What is on the Major and Mastro? What is the conclusion on the support for the coordinating council?
We had received information from the Home and School Coordinating Council, I believe, Thursday or Friday of last week. We passed that information along to Major and Mastro, and as of today, I haven't heard the feedback as to what the final estimated amount would be to do the auditing for the MCC. So hopefully this week we'll get that answer.
That this is just the continuation of the existing? Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor? The motion passes. Now on to the personnel items.
Before we do the personnel items, I just want to make a few comments. This evening, before the board, there are under A, there's a number of positions that we're recommending, or I'm recommending for elimination. And while this is not, while this is a challenging time, it's certainly additionally difficult when we're dealing with issues associated with the school closure, as well as associated with our typical review of scheduling and so forth. So as you can see, we're asking for positions eliminating resulting from the Audubon closure, as well, both professional and support, as well as other professional staff according to school code, and the elimination of a custodian as well. So I want you to know that both, all our principals are involved in this particular discussion, our central administration staff. We've had some consultants working with us as part of this to make sure that we're making all the right decisions to start the next school year off without a hitch. So I appreciate your If you have any questions on any of these, I'd be glad to take them now. Otherwise, we'll continue with your motion.
Yeah. Okay. So for the first ones, we'll take those one at a time. So may I have a motion to approve the personnel item A1, approve the elimination of one elementary reading specialist, one elementary instructional intervention specialist, one elementary physical education, one elementary nurse, one elementary school counselor, 3 half-time elementary gifted teachers, and one elementary principal position effective July 1st, 2017 due to the closure of the Audubon Elementary School and resulting in the consolidation of schools in accordance with Section 1124A3 of the Public School Code. The consolidation of schools has made it unnecessary for the district to retain the full staff of the professional employees. Have a motion? Second? Any comment?
I would just like to say, even though we all said it or many of us discussed it at previous public meetings, it is by no means an easy thing to do, to sit up here and vote for this. We all knew that when we closed a school, that people would be losing their jobs. And I believe many of us were emotional at that meeting, and many of us knew the repercussions, and I'm sure it was not easy for administrators to sit down with those people, and we don't take it lightly, and that's really all that I have to say about that.
Thanks, Andrea. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. The motion passes. All right. So may I have a motion to approve personnel item A2, which is approve the elimination of one secretary to the principal, 3 custodians, 2 office aides, 1 instructional aide, 1 recess aide position effective July 1st due to the consolidation of the elementary schools. Second. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the personnel item A3, which is approve and concur in the recommendation of the superintendent to curtail or alter the educational program as a result of substantial decline in course enrollments and in order to conform with standards of organizations in accordance with Section 1124A2 of the Public School Code by eliminating 1 technology education, 2 math, 1 English, 1 physical education, 1 science, 1 world language, French teaching positions at Methacton High School effective July 1st, 2017. Further, the superintendent is directed to notify the Pennsylvania Department of Education of the curtailment or alteration in accordance with Section 1124B of the Public School Code. May I have a motion? Second. Any discussion? You want to discuss, Kim?
I just want to reiterate something that when these positions were brought to us in executive session, because it's a matter of personnel, the one question that I had, and then the only reason that I can support this is that while it is a shame that we're going to be losing 7 people and 7 positions at the high school, we were reassured at that time there will be no changes in the course offerings. There will be no changes in the educational opportunities for our students. It's the only way that I would feel comfortable moving forward with this.
I would also like to say Dr. Katona and I plan to sit down to discuss topics for the Education Committee for the remainder of the year and next year. I would also just like to add that we're receiving transition updates. If we could have as an Education Committee topic any issues that are arising, that have arisen for scheduling or anything else to do with the elimination of these positions, because you can make a decision and check up on the decision, shall I say. We went over and over about running our district efficiently so that we can provide the best educational opportunities for our kids. Sometimes those decisions are very difficult. Sometimes they need to be adjusted. We learned that with the buses. We were trying to be efficient, and it wasn't done well. So although this decision is being made after consultants and thought, it's something we will look into. I would imagine that some of you could go home and ask your children how many students are in their classes. And some of the classes that they're going to tell you are very, very small, and these are not AP, specialized classes. They are core classes. And scheduling at the high school is very difficult. And we're trying to do it in a more efficient way so that all the children can receive the best education. And we will follow up to see that there's issues, if there's issues.
Thank you. Any other comment? Brenda? Yeah.
I just wanted to confirm the comment that AP and honors classes would be merged. Is that not correct, Dr. Zerbe, or is that correct?
I'm sorry, could you please repeat that question?
There was a comment that AP and honors classes would be combined under this one elimination, no?
No, that's not part of the plan.
Any other comment? Okay. All those in favor? All those in favor? Thank you. I'll plan on taking the rest of them combined unless anybody... Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot A4 there. Thank you. May I have a motion to approve personnel item A4, which is approve the elimination of one custodian position effective July 1st, 2017 as a result of the staff reorganization improvements to the efficiency of the school district. Do I have a motion? Second? Any comment? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, thank you. So for B through R,
Could I ask that you separate B1 out?
Chris, I recommend voting on B separately also.
okay, any other suggestions? Should we keep C and the rest of them as one? Okay, so Paul, just so I understand, you want to do each one individually? Okay, that's fine. All right, may I have a motion to approve B1, which is approve the establishment of the full-time temporary position for the K through 5 ELA curriculum instructional support teacher on assignment, cost to the district of approximately $49,000 and effective July 1st, 2017. Do I have a motion? Second? Any comment?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment towards these and why I'm supporting these for clarity for the audience is that these positions are reinvesting in the right areas, in my opinion, in where we need to. We're investing close to $500,000 or potentially into an ELA program. To implement those properly with the changes that we're doing, these positions help support the delivery of those mechanisms. I fully support Dr. Katona and Dr. Zerbe's recommendation on this.
Any other comment?
I will just reiterate, as education chair, we have talked about this position at length, and it is temporary and needed to make sure that like Paul said, our money is well spent.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I have had concerns about the implementation of this ELA program in the year after we implemented a math program in the same grades. And if we combine that with the fact that they will have a new student information system next year, probably new issues with transportation to address, and new schools that some of the teachers are in, and I just feel that it's too big a burden to place on the teachers to add this program at this time.
Any other comment? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, thanks. The motion passes with the one opposed being Brenda Hackett.
Yeah, you're good. You said it.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. May I have a motion to approve item B2, which is approve the establishment of the full-time position of K through 12 career counselor at a cost determined by the collective bargaining agreement with the Methacton Education Association effective July 1st, 2017. May I have a motion? Second. Any discussion on this one?
I think that it's great that we are being proactive instead of reactive as a district at this time, knowing the changes in what's to be asked of us at the state level, and what our students are going to be evaluated by and our schools are going to be evaluated by. I'm glad to hear that Methacton is at the forefront and that we are being ahead of the game in establishing this K-12 career counselor.
I'd also like to express my support in this publicly from a perspective of what Solderton does and Pathways programs and some of it's the principle of, if we were going to stand by what we're talking about in our strategic plan about the whole child and the whole lifestyle of their educational plan, this will support this. This supports the counseling efforts that are already done and provides the focus in making sure it's not a career, it's not just a college prep thing, it's a career development and exposure to the benefits from the perspective of where children can see their interest. It is the exact reason that we have in Methacton School District. So this supports that mission.
I will also add, it is confusing, I think, to a lot of people to see what's the difference between a guidance counselor and a career counselor. And I can just say, guidance counselors have a lot on their plates. Of course, they have the emotional well-being of our students. They have the additional responsibilities, and I'm not even going to do their responsibilities justice, of taking care of 504s, of helping implement IEPs of students. They conduct pro-social lessons. They do a lot, and this career counselor is different. And as the representative for the Technical Career Center, our world is, everything goes in waves. And we have found that a four-year academic college is not right for everyone. And we need to address the needs of all of our students and provide information and for them from a much younger age of different opportunities out there. And I sit at the Technical Center, and the different industries come in and tell us they need people and they need educated people, and this is another part of this position. So although there's some lemons, and I think Kim was the first one to say, we're trying to make Methacton better and better, and there's tough decisions with that, and this is part of a little bit of lemonade.
Just briefly going last, two of the points I wanted to make were taken. Paul said it, we saw it on the strategic plan tonight. It's the concept of the whole child, and I think that this position really does support that vision. And like Ms. Reese said, that I think that the K to 12, and maybe you're not thinking kindergarten in this terms, but especially in the, my daughter right now, she loves to cook and stuff like that. She's a very smart student, but I think it's important to recognize that the technical center sometimes has a stigma to it, and I don't think it should, and I think we need to support those types of positions, and I hope that this career counselor really does start to identify that, there's a lot out there for children, and there's different paths that these children should take, and I fully support this position.
Thank you, everybody. Any more comment? Okay. All those in favor? Thank you. Next one is 3. Okay, so may I have a motion to approve item B3, which is the establishment of the full-time position of elementary math specialist at a cost determined by the collective bargaining agreement with the Methacton Education Association effective July 1st, 2017. Second. Any comment?
I will just reiterate, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mr. Bickelman, or add. What I was just trying to say is it even confuses me, and I'm in education, all the different names and terms, but a math support specialist is just like a reading support specialist, and I wanted to reiterate what Dr. Zerbe said. Before the recession, before all the cuts, a lot of schools had one per building, and many districts have had to cut those positions and are slowly adding them back. So if I'm correct, we're now going to have 2 if this goes through. And that means 2 per elementary building. And I do feel, two total. Two
for 4 elementary buildings.
2 for 4, 1 for each building. The English teacher in me, maybe I needed a math support teacher. Elementary is the foundation, and if we don't get it right at the elementary level, our kids fall behind. And so I am in full support of this position.
Okay. Any other comment? All right. All those in favor? Thank you. And the last one in this section is B4. So may I have a motion to approve the establishment of full-time position of elementary gifted instructor at the cost determined by the collective bargaining agreement with the Methacton Education Association effective July 1st, 2017. This position is a result of elimination of 3 half-time positions being combined into 1 position. May I have a motion? Second. Any comment? Okay. All those in favor? Thank you. Now I'm going to group the rest of them together unless somebody has others that they want pulled out. Okay. So may I have a motion to approve the rest of the personnel items, which would be C through P, or I guess R. Second. Any comments? All those in favor? Thank you. Now on to the curriculum and programs. May I have a motion to approve the textbook adoption and ESL summer enrichment program as presented? Second. Any discussion?
Do you want to break those out?
You want to break them out? Okay, we'll break them out then.
Or just the 2, A and B?
Is there one in particular, or?
A1.
A1. And we'll do, anybody want to break any others out? Okay, so we'll do A1 and then we'll do A2 through 5. So let me revise that. May I have a motion to approve the textbook adoption for A1, the Wonder Balance Literacy, at a cost of $462,000. Second. Discussion? Any discussion on that one?
I believe, and I don't want to take Ms. Hackett's words out of her mouth, but based on what she said earlier, and that's why she said no to the other position, there is concern over the timing of this new ELA. We have gone back and forth over education, in the Education Committee, back and forth. There is no best answer for this. It's needed. The teachers have a lot on their plates. And the thing that finally sold me, well, it sold me because we need it. It's not fair to the teachers to have this testing without the correct materials. The Wonders is better for kids. It's balanced literacy. And hopefully, it's also a team bonding experience for our teachers who are going to be in new teams so they can work through it together. So although I do respect the thought that it's not the best timing, I think a year later would be even worse.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Chris. I think one of the questions we asked at the Education Committee was, are we doing this only because of our scores, or if we thought this was the better program? And it is comforting to know that we're choosing this because it's the better program for the education and not based on the scores. Obviously, the scores were an indicator to look at it, but that is not the driver for Dr. Katona when evaluating which program to pick.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment? All right, all those in favor? Okay, all those opposed? One opposed, Brenda Hackett. Now we're going to do items 11A2 through B. So may I have a motion to approve the textbook items or textbook adoptions of items A2 through 5 and the ESL Summer Enrichment Program as presented? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Now on to the policy. May I have a motion to approve the second reading of the policies as presented? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to the gifts. May I have a motion to approve the gifts and 3 trips as presented? Second. Any discussion? Go ahead.
Can we break out the trips B3?
Do you want to break that one out? Okay. All right, so let's revise this to, may I have a motion to approve the gift and donations and trips 1 and 2? Second. Any discussion on that part of it? All those in favor? Okay, that. Now, may I have a motion to approve trip number 3, which is the German-American Partnership exchange for Methacton High School German students? Have a motion. Second. Any discussion?
Just want to confirm the date there, June 20th, 2018. That is correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? You got to fit in one of those categories.
My son is attending on this trip.
Okay. And so Kim Aubrey Larson-East abstained. Everybody else voted for it. In terms of dates for the calendar, the first one's really supposed to be April 25th. We're announcing today's board meeting, in case you didn't know, is already happening. May 1st for the Education Committee, May 3rd for the Policy Committee, May 8th for the Property Committee, May 10th for the Finance Committee, May 17th for the next work session, and May 23rd for the board meeting. Is there any old business anybody wants to bring up? No? Okay, there's one item I want to bring up under new business, and then I'll ask others. I don't know if everybody noticed, but one of our neighboring school districts had a recent tragic event where one of the students took their own lives. And part of that, what they believe, at least what I read and heard, was that there was cyberbullying going on. And, you know, I think when everybody hears about that, it's a pretty tragic event, and no parent should see their own child pass away. What hit home for me was within a couple days, my son actually showed me on Snapchat the messaging that went to that girl. My son knows nobody in that school district, has no connections to that school district, and he had the exact text that went to that girl that they think was, a contributing factor. So what I did, and I don't know if I've mentioned this before, I originally moved to Philadelphia back in the early 90s to go work at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. I was involved with starting up the Division of Biostatistics and Epidemiology down there, and I worked very closely with a lot of the world-leading behavioral scientists. So I put a phone call into them down there. I hadn't talked to a lot of the people in a while, and they actually have a department on bullying and intimidation now. I know some of the community members who have to deal with this in their own personal lives knew about it, but that was news to me. So I reached out to them, and it's a group of people that's not only the behavioral and science people, but it's also the emergency medicine people, like one of my old friends, Joel Fine, who see the tragic side of it come through the emergency room. And I asked them if there's anything they could do to help us, because whether it's one child or hundreds of children in your school district, if there's bullying going on, you need to try to do as much as possible. And they told me about something that the state got right. And normally when we bring up the state and what Harrisburg's doing, we usually don't talk about them fondly. It's usually related to finances and everything. Well, this is one of the first times that multiple departments got together. The Department of Education, the Department of Health and Human Services, and the Department of Corrections got together, and they funded a grant to help somebody educate the school districts about bullying and everything that's going on. And I'm kind of partial to CHOP, so I think they're the best place in the world, and they actually got awarded that grant. And what they've been doing for the last 4 years is trying to figure out what's the best way to go into school districts and make children start thinking a little bit differently about bullying, and also help the school district understand what blind spots they might have in terms of knowing what's going on or how it's going on and all that. And they decided that I don't think it's a surprise to anybody. If you're going to go interact with the most critical kids, which are the 6th grade to 8th grade kids, you got to introduce technology, right? Just like we're doing with everything else. So they've been working for 4 years with a technology company to come up with an approach to go into school districts and really kind of open the kids' eyes and the school district's eyes to bullying and intimidation and how it happens, and point out some ways for the children to change their behavior, but also to help educate the school district. When I called them, they just finished out the round of approvals for school districts. So they got enough grant money to fund about 40 different school districts across the state of Pennsylvania. What my old colleagues told me is if we get in the paperwork, they will squeeze us in, and it's really for this school year. So what's nice about this is, and the administration here is working on the grant, on the application. They're going to get it in here either this week or next week. It's going to happen this year. They come in and it's 90-minute 3D technology sessions for the kids. They'll be targeting around the 6th through 8th grade, and it's going to happen. It will supposed to happen this year, and then over the summer, you heard Dr. Zerbe mention the staff retreat, the cabinet retreat. They were already going to talk about this and have discussions about it, but now they're going to have this additional information for themselves. So, while we've been fortunate we haven't had anything like that happen that drastic this year here, it's something we need to stay on top of, and we're fortunate to have institutions like CHOP and others around to help us out. So that's a new business that I'm bringing up. Hopefully, they're going to be able to squeeze us in and get us in this year. They'd already set their schedule for the year. They're over in Pittsburgh right now at schools over there, and they're going to be making their way over before the end of the school year here to the Philadelphia area. So that's my new business for today. Anybody else got any?
Just to follow up with that, Chris, so will that be an item on a future agenda once the paperwork gets done and gets put in front? Or what's the next step in terms of this?
Yeah, we can work on communicating. I don't believe there's any cost to the school district at all. So I guess we can figure out the best way to proceed once we get the paperwork in, it gets approved, and they say, here are the dates that we're planning on it. Because I think the administration will take over at that point and really figure out the best way to tackle it, and they'll work directly with the program people.
Okay. Yeah, it sounded like you said it was free, so there was no cost involved. I just want to make sure that, Kyle, are we moving forward in the correct way as a board with this? Just want to make sure that...
Essentially, the item was a suggestion by a board member, and the administration has the authority to move forward with looking into it and taking steps to apply for it. And any necessary action the administration can present to the board at an appropriate time.
Thank you.
Any other new business items? Okay, then we have the courtesy of the floor. You want to go first, Keeney? Okay.
Katie Alaba. I was watching the strategic plan presentation, and I was the one that made the comment about what is the definition of the community. I've stood this podium for the last 4 or 5 years and have asked previous boards, what is your definition of the community? Yes, I am a senior citizen, and I finally am proud to be one. I am one of 70% of the community that has no one in the school district. I am one of 25% that's senior citizens. We are part of the community when you mail out the tax bills. But when you're making decisions about the school district, you don't reach out to the majority of the community. Because I know a lot of members of this community who are my age, who have no children in the school district, who would be beneficial to give their experience to this school district because they've lived here for a lot of years. They've put their children through this school district and their grandchildren. But when it comes time for you to make decisions and do your surveys, we, and I mean we, are left out of the equation. And we're kind of summarily dismissed. But we have just as much say in the school district as anyone else, because you're spending our money. And we are very interested in having a return on our investment. This is what we want to see. We want to see a return on the money that is being spent, our tax money collectively. So the 70% of the community should have a seat at the table. And granted, I could go to the website and look. I don't troll I have no reason to go to the website. I do for specific things. But then when my son was here, I really didn't go to the website all that much. I went, checked his grades, checked his test scores. I kept up on that. But you need to consciously reach out to that 70% of the community. You're missing out on a lot of experience and maybe helpful suggestion to move this school district along, because most of us have a lot of history in this school district. We've known what's happened in the past, and maybe there's people out there that can help you from making mistakes in the future. But you have to willingly want to do this. This is why I've stood here for the last 4 years and asked, what is your definition of a community? We even had a committee, the Communication and Community Committee, from a previous school director. And when he left, the committee went away. So you have to make this conscious effort to do that. But you can't dismiss the rest of us, because if you're going to dismiss us, then maybe you shouldn't send us the tax bill in July. You know, we're important when you want our money, but you need to take suggestions from everyone in the community, not just the parents and the students and the teachers, the 70%. That is the majority, the bulk of this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
up here so I
I know,
can
you're
talk in the
little
microphone. Whoops, maybe not. Sorry. Hi. I'm Meg Kinane. This is Michelle McCubbins. We are the co-presidents of the Methacton High School Home and School. We realize that we really have no say in this, but I wanted to publicly recognize Dr. Gallagher Landis. Both Michelle and I have spent the last 7 years with her at the Home and School Association. We know that, she's been with Methacton High School for 21 years. She's begun her career teaching English. She progressed to assistant principal and has been the principal for the last 10 years. She's very rarely missed one of our home and school meetings. She's always there for us. She's made herself available for anyone who has questions. During her years as the high school principal, I've watched as she's always put our children and their welfare first. She has made difficult, sometimes unpopular decisions, but they were always for the benefit of our children, the staff, or the community, or all of those things. Sometimes an easy decision is not the right decision. She stood up for our children, staff, and community. She and Dr. Gravenese have also been there when the kids needed something. For example, they started and continue to support a food pantry at the high school level for children in our community who need meals when they're not in school. These two strong women have set an example for our children, and I'm personally proud to know both of them. I wanted to quote a few statistics about Methacton High School. According to the U.S. News and World Report in 2016, based on 4 different items, students performing better than expected in their state, disadvantaged students performing better than state average, student graduation rates meeting or exceeding national standard, ours is 98%, by the way, students who are prepared for college-level coursework. Methacton High School was ranked 23rd out of 676 high schools in Pennsylvania. That means we were rated about 3% in the top 3%. Methacton High School was also ranked 1,023 out of over 21,000 high schools nationally. That puts us in the top 4% nationally. The Philadelphia Business Journal ranked the top 50 Pennsylvania high schools by SAT scores in an article published in February of 2016. Methacton High School came in at number 19. All of these things tell me that Dr. Gallagher Landis has been doing a fantastic job. This brings me to my question, why? With the district in so much turmoil, why would you take Dr. Gallagher Landis out of her position? It's bad enough that the teachers are being moved around. Why would you think it would be a good idea to add this change to the mix? Many of you on the current board ran with the premise of transparency. There seems to be no real reason to make this move. Where is the transparency here? The decision was coldly announced without any warning. Dr. Gallagher Landis was not even given the courtesy of being able to tell her staff. They found out the same time we did via email. Dr. Gallagher Landis deserves better than this. I personally want to thank her for the countless things that she's done to improve our high school. She has been disrespected, and you should be embarrassed by the way the change was handled. I hope you know what you're doing. I realize that many of you don't have children in the high school. I also know that your focus has been on elementary school consolidation, which no doubt is a huge concern. I can only say that I'm sorry that your children will never get to attend a high school with Dr. Gallagher Landis at the helm. I mean no disrespect to her replacement, but he does have very large shoes to fill. As for me, I have 1 more year with the child in this district, and I'm sorry to say that I don't like the direction I see it going. You know, the old adage is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Dr. Gallagher Landis and Dr. Gravenese, you both have helped to guide our students to be productive citizens that will help change the world for the better. I wish them nothing but success. Thank you for listening.
And I just want to add, I am so thankful I'm gone. After this year, my daughter graduates. I've been here 7 years also. I have a son at the Air Force Academy. My daughter's going to college. Dr. Landis has just been a kid's principal. She supports those students. I'm telling you, if a kid goes into her office, she talks to them, she shows them respect, she talks to them as adults, okay? Young adults, but adults. I can't say that for the entire staff, okay? You are taking probably one of the best parts of this school, and you just pushed her to the curb. We don't know why, but you can't replace her with anybody better than her. She is available to those kids all times. It's not just academics, she's the activities. The kids love her, and it's not because she makes it easy on them, because she doesn't. But everything she has done, the 7 years I have been here, has been to support my kids, and my kids benefited. And I'm sorry that your kids won't, okay? They're both compassionate, they're fair-minded, and they were parts of the best part of this school. And like I said, I'm glad that I get to graduate with them, because I wouldn't want to be here without them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yep.
Hi, Pete DiPietro, Audubon. I wanted to comment on Ms. Corla's presentation a little earlier. I thought it was very thorough. I'm excited to see the transition take place. My only request would be, with the thoroughness of that whole timeline, I would just ask that the district work tirelessly moving forward with the bargaining unit to reach a contract settlement before the start of the school year, because I would hate to see any type of a disruption at the beginning of the school year as we have 500 students transitioning to new elementary levels. Thank you.
She's on mute. She was already heading down.
Oh, did I go in front of somebody? Sorry. Good evening. By way of introduction, my name is Sue Gabriel. I am a Worcester resident. I have two graduates from Methacton High School, one in 2008 and one in 2015. During my 20 years volunteering at the district, I've had direct interactions with various district leaders, school board directors, and principals. I recently learned of the reassignment of school principals due to the transition closing of Audubon. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Boardman for replying. This is an email that I sent to the board this morning, and Mr. Boardman replied that, you know, it wasn't a decision that could be voted on, so some of my comments here I didn't realize, but I'm just going to continue. Again, thank you for... So it's beyond my comprehension as to why the high school, and specifically Ms. Landis, would be demoted in an effort to address the immediate and long-term challenges before the Methacton School District and to best leverage the skills and talents of the leadership team. These were quotes from Dr. Zerbe's letter that was posted to the website. I mean, how does this provide continuity? How does this continue to foster the mission and vision of the district? Again, those are quotes from the letter. It seems in direct violation of both of those statements. Why was this decision announced prior to public discussion and school board approval? Where is the transparency? So I urge you to question and postpone. I mean, again, this decision apparently wasn't put before the board, which I find hard to believe, that the school board was not aware that principals were changing, but okay, maybe this happens in your executive sessions, whatever. I find it hard to believe that none of you questioned the move. Why upset the high school, the flagship of this district? Meg just quoted all the accolades, and, you know, I don't see any reason to make a change in the leadership. I really feel that there has been, in recent years, a pattern of disrespect to the strong women leaders of Methacton School District. I feel that this demotion is going to unfairly and seriously affect the professional reputation specifically of Miss Landis. And something that I tell my kids all the time, it doesn't matter how much money you make. Your reputation is irreplaceable, and you can't put a dollar amount on it. So I really would urge you to make, some recommendation to postpone this change or to at least explain it further. I just think you're making a huge mistake, and I know there will be repercussions one way or another. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Joe Bickelman, Audubon. Yeah, I recently heard a lot of great things about the high school and their status with the World News and Report and their status in Pennsylvania. And I always thought these things, with these principals being transferred and reassigned, I thought that would come under advisements in the personnel report and be voted on. That's where you usually see transfers and people moving around, and it was nowhere to be found. Back to the career counselor. I would hope, the discussions I heard was that, hopefully the kids today aren't being cheated out of the help from the current guidance counselors if they decide not to go to a four-year college. Hopefully these guidance counselors say, okay, you want to go into cooking, or do you want to go into masonry, or do you want to go into plumbing or whatever. Hopefully these guidance counselors that currently exist are helping the kids now. And now you're going to hire a career counselor who's going to take care of all the kids in the district. Hopefully the existing 14 people are doing these things, giving advice on the other careers and the other paths to be taking. Hopefully the current staff is doing that. I don't know if this one person is going to be the answer to that aspect. It's career counseling, it's guidance counseling. I mean, not everybody goes to a four-year school, so hopefully the kids aren't being cheated out of this. The finance meetings, the finance committee meeting on April 12th said I addressed assessment issues reports from the county. The board was given a budget update April 12th using the assessment, the taxable assessment parcels from December 31st. You as a board member are being cheated, okay? March 31st, you should have the number plugged into that analysis, that update for April 12th, okay? The March 31st report is probably dated April 2nd, April 3rd. It comes into the district office, and you should have that number plugged into that assessment data for the budget update. If you don't have March 31st, how about February? How about January? I mean, that's the simplest thing that you can update. For some reason, it hasn't been updated. For some reason. And believe me, I've encountered those reasons. Okay? Bob Harney is not here today. He is being considered for the assistant superintendent job at Pottsgrove School District tonight. They're voting on it tonight. And that's effective July 1st, 2017. I don't know why we didn't hear anything from anybody about that under the superintendent's report, under the personnel report. So he's going to be gone July 1st, 2017. Okay? But we didn't hear anything about it. That to me is unusual. That's a critical position. He's going to be approved tonight to be the assistant superintendent somewhere else. He's gone July 1st. I just don't understand that, why we didn't hear anything about it. If he does go, sometimes there's district policy. He took coursework and has got his doctorate this year and things like that, and the district paid for that. Sometimes there's requirements in bargaining agreements that if they don't stay another year, they have to pay back the tuition reimbursement that they got for last year, because you don't want to make an investment in somebody and then they go away. So usually in bargaining agreements, they have a requirement that they pay back that tuition reimbursement. So that's something to look into too. I hope we get a building utilization schedule based on the new adjustments. I would like to see the last day of school used for the teachers for the new ELA program and give the kids off the Friday before the Monday. have the teachers learn how to implement that elementary program, and give the kids a full day the Tuesday after Memorial Day. I'd like to see that happen.
Please finish up.
I never saw a budget update with a tax increase of 2.5% in it that has $1.8 million of unallocated expenses in April, on April 12th. That $1.8 million is practically equal to the 2.5% tax increase. So basically we're saying, here's a trough of money, let's figure out how to spend it. That should already be decided. Should be decided as of April 12th.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Lori Ann Berna. I'm a Lower Providence resident. I have 2 kids who have graduated from the high school and 1 who is currently in the high school. I've been involved in the school district as a parent volunteer for 18 years. I've spent 10 years in the high school. I'm also a substitute nurse in the district, so I've seen it from working in the district too. And I just wanted to talk about Dr. Landis. I just think that it's a huge mistake moving her from the high school. I think the school district is in enough turmoil right now with the consolidation of the elementary schools and the closing of that. There's going to be new curriculum. There's a lot of changes going on. And our high school has been such a great school. You heard all the statistics on that. And I just think changing that up in the midst of all this other turmoil is not a good decision. I've had interactions with Judy as a parent, and then also when I'm in here working with her. I've seen her respond to crisis situations in the school. She treats the students with respect. She always has time for the students, and I just think that the school will be lost without her. Nothing against the new principal coming in, but I think, maybe the year that there's so many other changes going on in the district is not the best year for that. We have a really rigorous high school curriculum right now. We have a lot of choices of electives. I'd hate to see anything. I know, the school cuts and furloughs will not have any impact on that, but that I will believe that when I see that. I know we've been focusing on the consolidation and the elementary school, but I think it's time that we need to put a little bit of focus back onto the high school again, because the high school is, the sending block for our kids as they're going off to college or into careers. And I just think, we're focusing on that, which was what we needed to do to get, fiscal responsibility and everything with that, but we need to focus on the high school. And I just think that moving Mrs. Landis out of the high school is not a good decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathleen Barone, Lower Providence, former school board member. Before I start my statement, I do want to make a comment, or I shouldn't say that, an observation that I figured out this evening. In fact, I figured it out before this evening, that's why I'm here. There is such a lack of knowledge about the high school sitting on this board that it is unconscionable. The things that were brought up tonight, there is no way you shouldn't know. You need to look into this school. You need to find out what's going on over there. The fact that you didn't know that they're going to be combining the language classes, an honors class, and a regular honors class, a language class with an honors language class because of this consolidation you're talking about. You're talking about the class average being 21. Yeah, there are classes that are 12, but there are classes that are close to 30. You have to look at what the class is. You have to figure out what the concentration is. This is not elementary school. This is not black and white in a box. It's different. None of you have, I shouldn't say none, a couple of you have high school students. Most of you do not. So I challenge you right now to educate yourself about the high school. Your children will eventually end up there. You need to find out what is going on there and put it in place before your kids get there. Your focus when you got on this board was about elementary. And kudos to you. You found out what you needed to do and you did it. Your job as a school board member is to know about every school. And it was very obvious tonight you do not. So I'm challenging you to please look into that school the teachers, everything else. And I have to, shame on you. You ran as the teachers' friends, and you are getting rid of 7 teachers in the high school. There is no reason. I can't even believe you're doing that. Sorry. But you should be ashamed of yourself. So I'm going to read my statement. My statement is about Mrs. Landis. As a school board member, I have served on several committees with Dr. Gallagher Landis during my tenure on the school board, and have attended 7 years' worth of home and school meetings, special meetings, back-to-school nights, and everything that comes with it. I have always been impressed with her in-depth knowledge of academia. She knows what is going on in the education world. That is why we have her. She has always been supportive of the students as well, parents, and this community. The success of our students in this high school is a direct correlation to the leadership in that school. She is a leader among leaders. I personally will always be grateful and proud to say that Dr. Judy Landis was a principal for my children. I do not know why you're removing her. In my years on the school board, there was never any negative comments brought up in exec session concerning her performance, only accolades. So I have to ask, why? Why are you changing the principal? Have you checked into this? Did Dr. Landis ask to change this position? Have you checked into the accusations that are being made about her? I'm assuming this is not a personal change. Trust, but verify. Why are you changing the principal during the largest transition our district has had in recent years? Sometimes you need to put steps in place. You take things step by step. You don't do everything at once and rip it apart. Why are you removing 2 female principals to replace them with males? From this side of the table, it doesn't look right. Why aren't you including the community in this significant change? The high school has approximately 1,600 students, and there is just no apparent reason for this change. Why has there been no public discussion? There has been countless hours spent on consolidating from one school, down from one school, and you can't put any discussion into our flagship school? Why aren't you being transparent about this issue? We are Methacton. Our students graduate from Methacton. They fill in their college applications. They fill in Methacton. College admissions officers look at the rankings of Methacton High School, the course selections at the high school, and the rigor of our high school, not the elementary schools. You need to make the high school a priority. You need to be transparent with the future plans for Methacton, and you need to involve the community in these discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Oh, John? All right. You almost missed it. Come on.
John Andrews, Lower Providence again. Several times over the years I've discussed the junior-senior prom, and I want to do it again. Specifically, the prom apparently is organized and run by the high school teachers, and the planning is done like a year ahead. So it's about a year until the next prom season. And it was mentioned this evening that there was a big crowd at the prom. And of course there's a big crowd when you're talking about 800 students or thereabouts. I haven't been at these proms, a little old for that, but having a crowd of that size, the prom itself, I imagine it takes longer to serve the meal, takes longer to get access to the prom, there's parking problems, et cetera, et cetera. And when I went to school, the juniors in the school were different than the seniors. The seniors are, they're outward bound, whereas the juniors, they're still in high school. And usually the crowd that goes to each of those events is about equal in size, and at a place like Methacton, it would be like 400. And I don't often get listened to, but I think that Methacton needs to have discussion about having separate junior proms and senior proms. And the senior prom is the place for the post-prom activities until the next morning, whereas the junior prom, doesn't require that for a variety of reasons. And I think that having separate proms overall is a better experience for the students, and we're here for the students. So I'm trying to give some emphasis to at least having a discussion about doing it the old way, and I think the old way of separate proms is considerably better, efficient, etc. The other thing is that it was mentioned earlier this evening about the U.S. News and World Report ranking of high schools and their criteria. The news that came out today is that Methacton placed number 27 in Pennsylvania. It was a year ago that Methacton placed number 23, and I don't see a big difference between anything between 15 and 30, so there's less of a difference between 23 and 27. Also, nationally, of the top 10 schools, 5 of them are charter schools. And charter schools are coming up in the world big time, and the public schools need to be aware of that and know that among the citizens of the country, among the parents, among the students, charter schools, they're not all the best, and you can say the same thing about the public schools. They're not all the best, but both public and charter schools, as well as other schools, are there to educate the children, and we need to give attention to educating the children. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, motion to adjourn. Second. All those in favor? Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you coming out.